Hello everyone, MG Tomb here. Today we are not gonna waste any time and we're gonna get right into the video because this video is 80 minutes long. Yeah, what is wrong with me? I'll tell you what's making me do this. It's passion. It's passion that's making me do this. It's from one of the most iconic games of all time. That's The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt and my all-time favorites. So I'm not gonna waste any time and we're gonna react to it, which is the difficulty of all 90 bosses in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. And you know what? I'm gonna offer advice which is worth $1 to trust me because I know something about this. So let's get right into the video. Okay. And I'm gonna increase its speed. Yeah.
Gods, start playing now.
What is up, guys? My name is Cosmic and welcome
Hey,
to
Cosmic.
the ranked difficulty of every single boss within The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt and its DLC. Now,
Okay.
there's 90 of them, so I gotta try and keep this video as short as I can. Please keep in mind this video is my opinion only and is in no way objective. Let me know.
Cosmic deserves praise for ranking them because he could have gotten killed in this kind of video.
I'm going to have an easier or harder time with any of the bosses in the video, and needless to say, there are spoilers of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt and both of its DLCs throughout the entirety of this video. Now, without further ado, buckle up and let's get started with number 90. Number 90,
Okay.
Gauntro Dim Master Mirror.
Really?
Alright, considering the Mana Glass to be a boss fight might be a little nonsensical as you actually don't fight him straight on, but he's a major character and you, as Geralt, do actually kill him. The showdown with Master Mirror is a riddle. You run through a distorted world filled with illusions and baits to distract Geralt from the matter at
Okay, I'm gonna offer like my opinion about it immediately. The fight with Gauntro Dim, I don't think it registers as a fight. Maybe that's why he has ranked it so low. But I could not really beat him for many times. And if you have to get to him, you have to get through a Heim, I think. Well, technically it's guarding a sword, so it's up to you if you want to fight it or not. So you can avoid it entirely. But when I fought Gauntro Dim, I didn't know how to defeat him and I had to start it like 5 times in a row. Turns out you just had to break that barrier and the water would have flowed in. And I had no idea how to do that. Like, even when Geralt was giving hints, I was not able to figure it out. So yeah, I was being pretty stupid.
hand, the stake being your soul. Once you run through the initial creepy area, you enter a church, and from there you discover that Gaunter is hiding within mirrors. After exhausting all the mirrors in the next area and having them disembodied voice of Master Mirror mocking
you had to break this, and I had no idea you had to break this. Like, I was literally searching for mirrors.
all the time, you find another way to capture him. When you're near the solution, Geralt gives you multiple hints as to what the answer is. And so, since there are no mirrors left, you cast art on the wall next to the well, releasing water and finding another reflection of the mana glass in the water, thus killing him.
Yes. Iconic, one of the most iconic villains in this game. My best.
89, Nathaniel Pastodi. This guy starts a slew of boss fights that are just like fighting a random bandit in the woods. It's just a duel between a standard human AI that are only differentiated from random mobs by having a special name. Amongst them all is Nathaniel Pastodi, a twisted individual that tortures women for his own pleasure and entertainment. After what is actually quite a cool and unique questline, you catch Nathaniel in the act, and after conversing with him a little, begin the duel. There's not any challenge to him, there's nobody to help him, and it's just a dude, really.
I just killed him every playthrough.
Number 88, Ewald Bosodi. One of the most short-lived but interesting characters in the game, Ewald Bosodi is a mysterious individual that assists Geralt in getting the House of the Bosodis for Olgierd von Ever.
Yes!
After organizing a heist with him, you travel with him to infiltrate the Bosodi auction house with a master of locks and a gymnast. Once you reach the vault, you find out Ewald has been lying to you and you battle it out. Once again, really nothing special, just a dude with a special name that you duel. Shame really, but I hate getting lied to. Number 87, Caleb Menga, a commander soldier of the Church of the Eternal Fire that...
Yeah, Caleb is actually pretty easy to beat. Well, technically, yes. It's 87. Why am I already being nitpicky?
To kill or interrogate to gain information of where he's at Dandelion. What can I say? Another dude that you duel. Nothing special differentiating him from a random bandit in the woods except for a special name and involvement in the story. Actually, this segment getting to Caleb is harder than this dude, but it's also damn fun melting through everybody with Triss. Number 86, Doppler. Alright, I actually have something special to say about this one. Since he's a Doppler, he can disguise himself as Geralt, and that's exactly what he does. He also utilizes the signs, defending himself with Quen and occasionally blowing you away with Ard.
You guys are not gonna believe what I did in this fight. So I fought him once, and then I thought, oh, he copied me completely. And you know what I did? I reloaded that save. I took off all my clothes, my swords, everything, and then I triggered this quest. And you know what? He basically was a naked Geralt. And it became so easy to beat him. It actually works. You just have to take everything off before you trigger his transformation. When you take everything off, he just becomes so easy to beat. He just uses science. That's it. He can use nothing after that. Nothing at all.
However, does not complicate the fight all too much. He's still susceptible to signs like Axie that makes the fight pretty damn easy.
If he had taken his armor off, like, this fight would have been 10 times easier.
His health bar is also the size of an ant, so he dies really quickly even if you're under-leveled. Number 85, Madman Lugos. We're pretty much done with the one-on-one bandit type
It's more of a gang fight rather than anything.
duels. Now we're on to the gank fights, and Madman Lugos takes the crown as the easiest of the bunch. This is because you get help from Ermion while fighting him and his soldiers, and since it's quite late into the game, you're most likely going to have upgrades on Geralt that can actually trivialize basic gank fights like this, such as Whirl or Rend. With the assistance of a strong mage such as Ermion and this, the fight with Madman Lugos is just as easy as you'd expect.
It's so odd, Ermion has his stuff and he's basically mashing it like a mace.
This guy doesn't deserve much more than this joke of a fight anyway. Number 84, Sigismund Dijkstra.
One of the worst things, but I understood like why we had to kill him. I was like, why did this guy... I mean, look, Dijkstra is like one of the most clever characters in the game, and he picked a fight with a Witcher. Like, how stupid is that?
God damn it, Dijkstra, I like you, but I really just hate you. Kinda glad that I finally get to slaughter you. Just another gank.
No, I was like really amazed when they made a quest to get him killed. I was like, this character will not make a stupid decision like this. He's a very crafty character. And even if he managed to do that, he would get out of there. Like, that is what I expect from Dijkstra. But
you also have Tala, Vess, and Roche helping you to exterminate Dijkstra and his men from his corruption. And hell, I'm glad I didn't find his treasure. Number 83, Doppelganger Wraith. This is similar to the fight with the Doppler, except there's also a Wraith of Kira with him. This fight is balanced because although the spirit of Kira is firing magic from afar, you also have the real Kira helping you to counter this. Once you kill the Wraith of Geralt, which is easy in and of itself, you can go and gank the spirit of Kira and kill
this is actually harder. It's actually hard if you do it on Death March.
her before she can do more.
Which I have done.
Geralt when she sees a rat. Number 82, King Radovid. Long live the king, or not.
I would put like Geralt and Kira way in front of them, way in front of this fight. You don't really fight him. In fact, you fight his soldiers. And they're not that hard to beat.
This is also a strange one to consider a boss fight, as you do not actually directly fight Radovid himself, but you do have to get to him. What's stopping you from doing this are the hordes upon hordes of Redanian soldiers, a lot of them wielding the big shields, which I find really annoying to get behind. If you have or spam Axie, this is fine.
This is actually quite easy. You just drop a Northern Wind. You just drop a Northern Wind and they all freeze. It becomes so easy after that. This fight becomes 10 times easier.
But I still find them really annoying, and placing them all so close together in such big numbers makes this gank really annoying. Number 81, Horse Bosodi. After killing Ewald with him and his men...
When you fight his brother, you have to fight one guy. With these guys, you have to fight like 4 or 5. I would argue that this was one of the hardest fights because I died on it in Death March.
As well as the lockpicker you chose to hire, Horst offers you the House of the Bolsodis, but without the documentation inside it. Declining this offer, you fight Horst, the lockpicker, and 2 shielded Redanian soldiers. This gank is pretty cool, and the arena is nice too, but that's about it. Nothing special to say about any of the members of the gank, and nothing really differentiated from the standard ones. I will tell you though, loot this area before you leave. It's a vault. It's got expensive things.
You're never gonna get back. You cannot get back here.
Number 80, Von Everec Raids. Let me tell you, this boss does not live up to any other boss with the name of Von Everec in it. It's just a bunch of standard human AI
one-shots.
You may not get any assistance to the fight, but you really don't even need it. As I mentioned in the Madman Lugos fight, you pretty much only need World or Rend to trivialize this, and judging by the level requirement of Evil Soft First Touches, I reckon you have either one of these by now. This boss leads up to one of the funniest and creative quests in the entire game though, so I guess that adds some sort of satisfaction to it.
Yes, it was one of them.
79, Vision of Madman Lugos. Just imagine a vision of yourself being more challenging than your actual self. I find this fight more challenging.
Yeah, this was the odd thing. Like, Madman Lugos was so easy to beat, and this was his vision. And it was much tougher than him.
Because although you get assistance in both of them, you don't get help from a powerful mage in this one. Instead, you get the help of a few swordsman Skelligers. Number 78, Berserkers. A bunch of bears. Bears that you fought numerous times.
I don't think it was hard
so far and have hopefully had no trouble with. Combine this and the fact that you're assisted by...
I mean, the fact he has ranked these fights is the most oddest things because I cannot rank them. To me, they are all the same. They're just like gang fights.
A ton of Skelligers, including Madman Lugos, Krak on Crate, Hjalmar on Crate, Holger Blackhand, Ceres on Crate, and Dona on Hindar. It makes for a pretty damn easy endeavor, if you ask me. Number 77, Vision of Eredin, King of the Wild Hunt. Geralt's greatest fear in the Cave of Dreams manifests into the shadowy spirit version of the King of the Wild Hunt, Eredin himself. What's unusual and intimidating about this fight is that there's this big red skull above Eredin's spirit that indicates you are dangerously underleveled to fight him. this isn't actually the case, and he doesn't one-shot you as you'd expect from a mob accompanied by that icon. Another thing is, you don't even need to fully deplete his health bar. The fight ends before you even expect it. Number 76, Ulrich and the Fallen Knights.
Couldn't give a shit about your grief. Not the tiniest, runniest, greenest little shit in the world.
Wait, this is in the Blood and Wine, I think.
That pretty much sums up this fight. The archers and the users of the crossbows can be annoying, can deal some pretty big damage, but
when you fight in gangs with enemies with this number, the first things I do, I usually take out the guys with crossbows. They're the hardest to deal with. The rest you can just parry and kill at your own convenience. It's that simple.
As I said with most ganks, Whirl and Rend can absolutely trivialize this encounter. Not much more to say. Number 75, the Apiarian Phantom. I wanted to put this guy a little higher on the list, but
I don't think it's tough. It's just like the Hound of a Wild Hunt. It's just the chase you have to give it is actually the hardest part. It just pissed me off.
I actually really suck at fighting Hounds of the Wild Hunt. First of all, the Apiarian Phantom just runs away from you, and you have to use...
You just use Elemental Oil. I don't think he's using.
Catch him. I thought this fight was going to be a boring cat and mouse chase where you had to hit him from the back of Roach. But in fact, it's just a boring chase until you fight a single individual Hound of the Wild Hunt. And from the experience with Nithral, you should be well educated and should know how to fight these guys easy.
Yeah.
Number 74, Basilisk. Not much more to say about this fight either. The Basilisk is one of those creatures that just gets reskinned and made into other bosses throughout the game. This OG Basilisk just so happens to be the easiest. The thing about these creatures is that they stagger really, really easily, so you can literally just spam it.
Fighting the Basilisk as Ciri is actually much easier because she can teleport and stuff. I found it like really easy. Even on Death March, it was easy for me.
Attacks on him and have him stagger every single time, making the fight pretty damn easy.
I like teleported through the Basilisk and went on his back every time, and it made everything pretty easy.
You have to know when to back up for a little while before retaliating sometimes. Even then, his attacks don't do that much damage, and you should kill this guy in no time. Number 73, Abaya the Water Hag. This is literally just a fight with a Water Hag in a dark cave with some Drowner adds added in for good measure. Abaya's health pool is pretty small, deals pretty lackluster damage, and can be...
I think this was in Skellige, I think. Probably, I could be wrong.
Taken down pretty easily. Only thing to
where that boat, it was in Skellige.
watch out for those drowners that can gank you and stun you out of any sign casting or long attacks you may throw at her. You can choose to go all out on a bio or take out the drowners before going for her, but either way, it's a pretty simple fight that you shouldn't have any trouble with at this point in the game. Number 72, the King of Wolves. This fight is made much easier by the fact that you play as Ciri.
Yes. If you didn't play as Ciri, it might be difficult, but Ciri can just teleport through your enemies. Like she can get behind them, instantly attack to teleport through them again. It's like you can do this repetitively and easily tank anyone. Even the hardest difficulties, this becomes an easier fight.
You play on, be it just the story or Deathmarch, you always have some super overpowered gear when you play as Ciri. Despite the werewolf being quite agile, Ciri also has ways to move around this cave very quickly and catch up to him, making punish him and killing him a pretty easy task. Number 71, Salma the Succubus. At first, this fight...
I have killed her twice. I don't think that would have been a popular opinion, but the hardest things when I fought her was actually I got stuck in corners and I died so many times, and that was a death march. But on easy, I managed to kill her like, you know, the story and sword medium settings. I managed to kill her like every time.
It can seem a little intimidating,
and it is very important to kill her because you need one of the most important decoctions, the succubus decoctions. It increases your attack power. I think it was one of my favorite decoctions.
With her having some powerful magic attacks that destroy her basement that she seems to care so dearly for. But the truth of it is, with the arena being so small, the distance in which you can exploit that magic is extremely limited. There are no gaps for you to close. You can easily jump up for a matter of seconds and punish her. This combined with the fact that her health bar is pretty small and that her attacks aren't crazy powerful makes this fight pretty easy. Number 70, Hagumban the Neca Warrior. Hooray, another gank boss.
You know what happened for me when I fought him?
When
I fought him, I accidentally delivered a blow to him when he was burrowing into the ground, and my loot got stuck into the ground, and the quest just updated. I was like, oh no, what do I do? So I saved and reloaded, and thank God, like the trophy was right there. This quest like bugged out. He burrowed into the ground, and I killed him at that moment. And basically, the loot just got caught inside the map. It was really odd. Like, he just does this thing where he summons waves and something. He's gonna talk about it.
Neca Warrior, a stronger version of the standard Necas. In the case of this contract, the warrior summons 3 separate
waves that's what he did.
To come and kill you based on his health percentage. Providing how good you are at fighting ganks and how well educated you are of each of the signs, this fight should be absolutely no problem. It's just very slow, and very boring, and not fun and bad. Number 69, Woodland Spirit, the Leshen. I love the designs of Leshens and Spriggans.
Yes,
in appearance, they look
I agree. Leshens are one of the most well-crafted NPCs. I don't know if they qualify as an NPC, but they're very well crafted. And they're easy to beat as well. I would say like, just use Igni.
Sentient with very slow and delayed movements, almost as if they are reluctant to fight you. Two special things about Leshens are that they can conjure roots from the ground to attack you from a distance, or they can close this distance by disappearing into mist and crows and warping closer to Geralt. All of this and the fact that the health bar can be pretty girthy depending on when you come here can actually make this fight semi-challenging. However, there is one thing you can do to absolutely trivialize it. Use of Igni.
Yeah.
It's literally a tree, what do you expect? Number 68, Mountart the Grave Hag. Basically a water hag, except it likes dead bodies instead of water, and it throws dirt.
I think when I fought her, there was this thing I read in the bestiary, you can cut their tongue off. To this day, I have not been able to accomplish it. I just don't know how to time it perfectly to cut their tongue off. For some reason, you can counter their, like, you parry attacks. You can do that very simply with them, and you can counter their attack, but I've never been able to do that. And I really want to do that. Like, I don't know how. Maybe in future.
Dirt at you
I hope.
Of liquid. This one is encountered later in the
yeah,
game.
that's what I mean. That attack, you can counter it.
Its dialogue is cool, I guess, but that's about it. Number 67, the Witch of Link's Crag. Think Salad Succubus, except in a slightly bigger arena and with a kitty. You can choose to go all out on the witch or cry while you put down the kitty and then deal with her. I recommend this as it means the fight isn't a gank and your sign castings and heavy attacks will not be interrupted. Again, although she's a mage, she doesn't have the biggest arena and this means her attacks can't be used at much of a distance and can be punished pretty easily. Number 66, Nithral the Wild Hunt. Oh boy, our first Wild Hunt general. I must say, I'm actually a huge fan of the run-ups.
I think the biggest problem with Nithral was, like, it managed to regenerate its health, but it also made it weaker. I think on Death March, it becomes a really exhausting fight. It's not a hard fight. It's just exhausting, I would say.
This fight and the fight itself. This battle with the General of the Wild Hunt is pretty easy, but can cause problems if you're just starting out with the game.
Yes.
For an early game fight, Nithral introduces the player perfectly to enemies that are slow and hit hard, and how to deal with them. With Kira helping you along the way, something that...
It's just a long and exhausting fight. That's how I'd call it.
Nithral will go invulnerable multiple times during the fight, healing himself and conjuring portals to NL, which Hounds of the Wild Hunt will come through. Upon the defeat...
I think the first time I played it, my weapon like gave out by the time I was fighting him. And it has happened like 3 times in a row. So I have no idea why it happens. Like, you have to get armor repair kit or weapon repair kit by the time you get to him. You will break your sword by the time you get to him because you have to fight so much.
Of each wave, Nithral will become vulnerable once more, exponentially taking more damage each time this happens. All in all, the fight isn't too challenging, and it's probably the least memorable out of every fight with a General of the Wild Hunt, but I appreciate this fight for being a nice tutorial boss for what comes up later in this fantastic game. Number 65, High of Vampire. You may think turning invisible is an awesome power.
No, it's not any... They never really turn invisible. They turn invisible, but you can see the outline and you know, okay, he's right over there. It's such a stupid invisibility power. They turn invisible, yet they are still visible. It's so bad.
Especially in a battle with a Witcher. But is it really when you don't actually turn invisible? The battle with this High Vampire bluffing in cooperation with Nathaniel Pastodi is just a matter of dodging initial attacks and then punishing after you get dove. He goes invisible, but as I said, he's still very easy to spot. You just watch out, dodge his initial pounces, and you're good to go. Only reason he's not high on this list is because he can actually hit you pretty hard, but just don't get hit, lol. Number 64, the Big Bad Wolf. I love this quest, and I love the place in which this quest takes place.
This was the most creative quests they made, like this Beyond Hill and Dale or something. Oh yeah, it's written Beyond Hill and Dale. Like, these were one of the most creative quests.
Big Bad Wolf is the wolf from the Little Red Riding Hood story. After fetching a red robe for Syanna, she goes full...
I mean, technically, it's the same skin. It's a werewolf.
Playing masquerades as Little Red Riding Hood herself. After admiring...
It's just a reskin, right?
The several large features the wolf has, he decides it's time to eat Geralt and Syanna. He's basically just a werewolf, though, similar to Morgvarg and the King of Wolves. Big Bad Wolf is in very late game, in the DLC to be exact, so his damage and health is all upscaled to suit this, and that's why he's this low on the ranking list. Number 63, Noonwraith, the Devil by the Well. I hate Wraith.
Wait.
A tube low on the ranking list. Number 63.
I think the biggest thing about this fight that made it hard, it is the first contract you take. If you're playing this game for the first time, this will be a hard fight for you. And you will genuinely be terrified to fight her. But if you know how to fight her, it's actually a really easy fight. It's not that hard.
Moonwraith, the Devil by the Well. I hate raids. I'm too obsessed with teleporting and escaping my Yrden, and I find them infuriating to fight sometimes, especially if they regenerate.
No, I don't think they're infuriating to fight. The thing is, when they like this phase out, that is the part that makes them harder to fight. Because there is one big bomb in the game. What is it called? Superior Moon Dust. When you get that, Wraiths literally become so easy to fight. They become so easy to fight. You don't even need to use Airden.
Or have very girthy health bars. Despite the Devil by the Well being quite early game, she can cause quite the problem for anyone very new, or anyone that grabs his contract super early. The key to fighting raids, noon raids, and banshees are to cast Yrden on the ground, turning them into their manifest form.
Or Moondust.
If you don't do this, you're relying on RNG to really deal any damage to them. In spirit form, they absorb the vast majority of damage that heads their way from Geralt.
I mean, if you have started New Game Plus, you're going to be able to deal it with it pretty easily because you will have Moondust. But if you have not, it will be hard. And Moondust basically makes them permanently like physical form.
They're definitely my top 5 least favorite enemies to fight in this game, and there's 9 reskinned Wraith bosses.
Yes.
God damn it. Number 6.
I do hate Wraiths, but there are specific Wraiths I hate. I think the most worst I hated was Jenny of the Woods. She genuinely killed me 7 times on death march difficulty. Oh, I hate this guy as well. He has like an abysmal amount of damage. I don't know why. Every time I fought him, he has killed me so many times. Fighting him inside that cave was the hardest thing that I've ever done, especially on deathmatch. I couldn't beat him like 4 or 5 times until I managed to use some decoctions and stuff. Then I've like dealt with him.
62, Ignifatus. You know how I just said I hate raids? Well, something I hate even more than raids are goddamn foglets. Ignifatus is a green foglet that has quite a girthy health bar, and for someone that hasn't encountered a foglet
his
yet,
damage is also high.
I think foglets are just really annoying to fight because
his damage is insanely high.
And they send out
like, look, I could never really get a read on his attack pattern. Every time I got too close to him, he could all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, swiped me and my health was gone. Look at his health, where it is. It's just gone.
Clones of each other to gank you. Thankfully, these clones die in one hit, but having 3 different separate foglets attacking you at any one time means that finding a window to hit them without getting staggered can be quite the challenge. But once you get to know how to deal with foglets, it won't be too annoying, but goddamn, I hate them. I hate them. Number 61, Morgvarg the Werewolf. Another reskin. How exhilarating. Morgvarg is another werewolf like the Big Bad Wolf and the King of Wolves, except this one is early game and is most likely the first one you battle. I think this adds some difficulty.
I think Morgvarg's quest had like 4 or 5 endings, but I did one of those endings, two of those, where you free him from his curse and then kill him or make him eat his own flesh. Those are the 2 I've done.
Finding a window to punish werewolves in combat as Geralt efficiently can be tough. Once he's on the floor, though, the real puzzle begins. I won't spoil anything, but there's a certain item you have to acquire that truly kills him, and until you find this item, you have to fight him every single time you re-enter the arena, potentially making this one fight multiple. Obviously, once you fought him once or twice, it gets much easier, though.
Need more
Number 60, Jenny of the Woods.
Worst Wraith fight I've gone through. One of the worst Wraith fights. It's so bad. I hate this fight. This was my nightmare. Like, I literally quit the game while playing it because I was so tired. I had tried for like 6 or 7 times. I was like, nah, not gonna play this.
Just another Wraith. Cast Yrden, get it into manifest form, and punish it. Jenny of the Woods, however, actually has something semi-unique to it. Upon getting its health bar to certain percentages, it will disappear and send out clones of itself while it heals up.
No, I think a lot of Wraiths do that. A lot of Wraiths do that. Jenny of the Woods is not the only one. Like, the Devil by the Well, she also does that. No, I think I saw 2 or 3 more who do this. The White Lady also did that.
Adding significant difficulty to it. She's also quite early game, so be sure to grab this contract a little later to avoid having a weapon break because the fight is so...
Yes, I think the thing is I have fought her way too early. That's the problem. I always fight her way too early. Like, even when I fight her, I am on the same level as the quest. It's still hard. She just feels like a tank for some reason.
Long. Number 59, Melusine the Siren. Although
this quest bugged out for me. So I don't know what happened. When you shoot her in the air, she falls a bit down, right? So everything was fine up until that point. So when I shot her over the water, she went straight down and disappeared. And the quest updated like, okay, you have finished it. I was like, what happened? Where's the trophy? And it had gone down the cliff. And basically I lost the trophy. I don't know if they patched it. Probably they must have patched it, obviously.
Don't dislike
it's been a long time.
I dislike foglets and raids. It's certainly an annoyance. This siren, however, cannot be shot to the floor with your crossbow, unlike harpies and some other siren.
For me, it went straight down. There's a cliff on the left. It went straight down that cliff and never really came back up. And it was like, quest updated. You go back and talk to somebody.
Instead, You have to bait a hit from her to be able to do any substantial damage. If she misses a charge on Geralt, she'll just hover there for a minute and allow to beat her up essentially. You can whittle her health down slightly using the crossbow between charges, but make sure not to get hit by it because damn if she hurts. The charge attack has some pretty obvious
No, I think she's easier to beat compared to everyone else.
Though, so dodging shouldn't be a problem.
Because by the time you fight her, you are quite over-leveled.
If you come here as soon as you get the level requirement, her health bar can be quite hard to surmount, but that shouldn't be an issue either.
Yeah, she fell down straight from that rock side, straight down. And she never came up. And the quest was finished. I tried this very similar thing, which I tried with somebody else. I don't remember who it was. It was the Necker. And I reloaded the game. I still didn't get any trophy. Basically, I've lost it.
Either if you come here slightly later. Number 58, Heim.
Yes, that's my point. Look, if the Heim is so far high, to get to... Who was it? Contra Dim. You have to actually go through a Heim. I know, again, it's by choice. But if you go through a Heim, you have to fight a Heim when you have to fight him to get the venomous Viper Silver or Steel Sword. Is one of the two. And you can only find it in that location. And there's a Heim guarding it. So maybe at that point, fighting a Heim is easier because you're fighting the Heim first time in Skellige. And Heims are not that hard to beat because they just walk. They're just black mosses walking, and they're predictable. They are so predictable to fight.
Not sure what the deal is with the Heim, but he's kind of like a Leshen or a Spriggan. Slow and sentient with attacks that are delayed and simple.
Its attack pattern is very similar to a Leshen. Very, very similar. Like 99% similar.
Dodge, but hit like a freight train.
Except
like
the
Leshens
roots.
And Spriggans, it's a case of ensuring you absolutely do not get hit by utilizing Quen and dodging appropriately. His health bar can be quite big too, which can be an issue if you do not have Whirl or Rend. But if you can dodge effectively and use it, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Honestly, I think I have a harder time actually looking at the thing and finding it than I do fighting it. But I will give it credit for killing me a few times on my very first playthrough of The Witcher 3. Number 57, Cursed Mother.
The first time I fought it, I was so scared. I was like, no, this is some kind of outwardly boss. I'm not going to be able to fight it. But I still won.
Not much to say about this boss. It's another reskin of the raids, and it's essentially a harder version of Jenny of the Woods. Based on her health percentage, she'll split up into multiple weaker raids while she heals up.
No, but by this time, you're pretty over-leveled. You can... At least that's how it was for me on multiple occasions.
She does this multiple times, so be sure to cast Yrden when it matters most.
You see, there you go. He said like there was something that Jenny of the Woods did, where she regenerates health. Cursed Mother does it as well.
Cursed Mother is a boss that you can actually
she's divided into three.
Accidentally, so I put it this low on the list because she actually caught me off guard and killed me once or twice on my first playthrough. Number 56, the Heart of the Tree. Think Dark Souls, Bed of Chaos.
This is easy. I would put it much lower than Cursed Mother.
But less unfair and far less bullshit. The heart protects itself.
You just have to fight Endregas. It's so easy, and you can one-shot this guy if you do it appropriately.
Barrier similar to Quen, spawning waves upon waves of Endriga to gank you. At the end of each wave, you have the opportunity to destroy the branches it uses to protect itself and deal a lot of damage to the heart. Other than that, there's not much more to this fight.
I think there was this moment you could use a superior dancing star on it and just consistently took damage. I don't know if that is still there or it has been patched.
Stationary bulbous sack that can't really defend itself very well. I put the heart this down on the list because the Endriga can cause an issue in gank.
I mean, Endriga warriors are hard to fight. Endriga workers are pretty easy.
If you're really low level, and it can be quite awkward to find a winner to destroy the branches that get a hit on it sometimes. Number 55, Golem. The fights with Golems are normally a stamina game more than anything. Frequently, they'll protect themselves with their arms and completely absorb every point of damage you deal to them in a short amount of time before retaliating with a fast attack. In the time you can't deal damage to it, you have to...
I mean, this is the most reckless fight I've seen with the Golem. You don't go that close quickly when it's jumping in the air.
To make sure you have your dodges down and that you have a nice Quen shield active all the time. Golems share a characteristic with Leshens and Spriggans in that they are slow in their attacks generally, but they will...
Golem's attacks are pretty predictable. Once you understand their attack pattern, they're easy to beat. They're so easy to beat.
Hit pretty damn hard. Manage your windows as best you can, and you shouldn't have too much trouble, but whittling down there, often a large health pool can be...
Like, look, when it blocks, you are gonna be sure it will have a big attack very soon. It will either be the swipes they do, or it will be like jump up or down. So that's the only thing you need to watch out for. Get behind him and just deal with him.
Protect themselves. Number 54, Pester, another reskin. Cast Yrden and kill her. Hit her with your sword. She does more damage than the other raid.
I just fed Graham to her, so it was easy.
Number 53, Kernon the Leshen, a reskin.
Reskin.
Much like the Woodland Spirit, this Leshen rests silently in the woods defending its territory. Also similarly, he disappears into crows in an attempt to ambush you with some quick attacks with fast
and use Igni and the fight is over.
recovery times. Honestly, just trivialize the fight by using Igni. In the footage I'm showing you, I haven't actually dedicated any sort of upgrade whatsoever into Igni, and it's absolutely destroying him. Even without it, the fight is pretty simple if you can get the dodges down, but Igni, aside
By the time you fight him, you're actually quite high leveled and you can deal a lot of damage to him.
that I never really find particularly useful in the vast majority of circumstances, makes this fight a joke. I actually put him further down on this list because he has killed me in my first playthrough, and
Seriously?
hit like a truck if they do manage to get a hit on you. Number 52, Slave Knight Gale the Catacan. To get this beast to show its
The worst quest in the game because Geralt had to sing in this quest and it was such a bad way of singing, man. Oh my god, I was like, please end this. You have destroyed the badass Geralt in my head.
Geralt consumes probably an unhealthy amount of alcoholic beverages and makes a racket in the streets.
Once was a maid from Vico, Varro. Every night she'd be loose tomorrow. Early in the morning.
After a while, Gale finally shows himself with lust for the witch's blood. Fighting him is just like fighting the higher vampire from earlier. He goes invisible, but not really, and the fight is pretty straightforward. That is, until you get him to 50% HP. Here, he runs to a hut on the docks, and you have to run and finish him off. Again, this is pretty straightforward, and you shouldn't have any problems.
Easy.
I put Gale this far down on the list because he actually hits pretty hard, and Catacans can hit some pretty solid damage pretty quickly, so if you die a few times, I wouldn't worry. Number 51, Wyvern. Let me tell you now that the footage I'm showing you does not do this guy justice. Wyverns can be one of the most painful...
Wait. This is the one that you find in... near the Nilfgaardian camp. I think this is that one. In No Man's Land. You find it in Velen. I'm pretty sure it's that. It's so easy to beat because by that time you're so over leveled by the time you get to him. If you go to him pretty early, it will be hard to beat. I could be wrong.
They throw goop at you that causes you to bleed for a while.
I find them easier to beat compared to any other monster. They are the easiest to beat for me. I don't know why. It could be like I'm more adapted to them. Their attack pattern is always very predictable. You know what they're going to do. They do these swipes or they turn their head like all the way back like this one has done. Or you just sidestep every time and attack their sides and go further. Like you just have to sidestep when fighting a wyvern. And wait, what the hell did he call it? Wait, what did he call it?
Fly around the place, making it difficult for you to get a hit on them. Retaliate with some very quick attacks with portals. And as I said, can be a real around this. Wyvern, wouldn't worry. Number 51, Wyvern.
Wait,
Let me tell you now that the footage I'm showing you does not do this guy justice. Wyverns can be one of the most painful enemies to fight in the game. They throw goop at you that causes you to bleed for a while. Fly around the place, making it difficult for you to get
They're easy to beat, I think. They're the easiest to beat.
hit on them. Retaliate with some very quick attacks with portals. And as I said, can be a real pain in the ass to fight early game. Just try and keep your distance and bait some easy to punish attacks and you can whittle down their small health bars pretty quickly. Number 50, Earth Elemental. The Guardian of the Mask of Ouroboros is a sleep
I generally hate golem types more than anything. I would say.
Elemental, a creature that's slow and pretty easy to dodge, but hits like a bus. He's pretty much a reskin of the...
They are tanks, yeah, they are literal tanks. When they hit you and you are on higher difficulties, let's say Death March or Blood or Broken Bones, you are gonna get a lot of broken bones.
Golem boss from earlier on, except scaled for a little later game. He defends himself often, similar to what you had to deal with before, so you shouldn't have too many problems, unless he hits you and stunlocks you, of course, which he can do if he charges at you and swings twice. His appearance is god-awful, too. He's just a lump of rock.
He looks like shit. To be honest, he looks like a pile of shit put together.
With arms and legs. Number 49, Sarasti the Ekimara. This fight
Oh, this fight. When I fought him the first time, it caught me completely off guard. Like, I had no idea what I was going into. But by the time I realized, oh shit, I'm stuck. I couldn't even get out. Because I think they like put you in that cave that is underneath the hut. I went there, I was like, oh no, I can't get out. I'm stuck. And then I had to literally reload an old save to get out of there. Like there was no other option. I was stuck and I was under level. It was just my curiosity got the better of me, and I went to fight him and realized it was impossible to beat him because he had a red skull over his head and I was very under leveled.
Really caught me off guard the first time I encountered it. It's a reskin of Gale and the Higher Vampire, except this one has seemed to give me more trouble than the others. The arena for this fight just feels weird. There's broken pillars in the center of the room that often obstruct my dodges.
I did try to destroy the pillars because I thought this like something would fall down on his head. You know, gamer curiosity.
The room itself feels smaller than it looks, and this makes the fight with this agile Ekimara quite challenging. Timing your dodges correctly are essential for Ekimara fights, and having things in the center of the room that obstruct that make it so much harder. I struggle to dodge these things.
This is such a reckless fight. Their attack pattern is also predictable. It's a bit similar to water hags and stuff. You just have to realize when they raise their arms, they're gonna attack you. The moment they like lean a bit, you know they're gonna attack you. Just get away, roll away. You can't really side swipe or anything. You just have to roll away at that.
Sometimes, and when they do hit you, they can hit really hard.
And just use black blood. Why isn't he using black blood? He should be using black blood against him. I mean, and it's clearly like vampire oil. You have all these things, use them.
Hard as well. Combining this and the small cluttered arena makes this fight harder than its predecessors. Number 48, Howl of the Chort. If we want to talk about bulky bosses, we got ourselves one right here.
It's a tank. Its health is such a big tank. It was one of the hardest ones to beat for me. But I didn't use any potions, so there's that. No potions, no decoctions, and I still managed to fight him and beat him on death march.
Debating the creature to the cave, you finally go head-to-head with it, and this thing is basically just a blob of HP.
Yes.
For the most part, his attacks are slow and quite easy to dodge, as with a lot of bosses, but he hits pretty hard if you get hit by one of them. He does have an attack that he performs
if he hits you on death march, 3-shot, you're dead.
if you're behind him or extremely close to him, where he slices with his claws horizontally. This attack will stun you with ungenerous hitboxes, and he could potentially follow up
And if you're fighting in a cave, please use cat push and it will create better footage.
with a lethal attack. Try to watch out for this, whittle down his massive health bar, play the stamina game, and you should be good to go. Number 47, Lucy, the White Lady New.
Wait, no, okay. I actually encountered, like, in these white fields, I encountered, I don't know where it was. I encountered this random noon wraith once. I don't remember where it was. I think it was near the horse races, and that caught me off guard. And it was so difficult to beat. Near the horse races, I don't know, there was this, I can't remember. There was a place where you go for horse racing with a Nilfgaardian, and then near that place there are fields and there's a noon wraith there. That noon wraith caught me completely off guard, and it looked exactly like the White Lady. And it was so hard to beat, and I had to run away from it. But luckily you can. There was no contract on it.
Moonwraith.
Just information.
Exact reskin of Jenny of the Woods and Cursed Mother. She splits up to heal, but it's scaled for later game, meaning she does more damage and heals more quickly. Number 46, Fire Elemental and Philip.
You know what? I didn't know for the first time how to beat him. I'm talking a lot, aren't I? Because I told you I'm passionate about this, okay? You basically use odd against him, and your fight becomes 10 times easier.
Isleheart. Some of you may put this boss lower on the list, and I would too if I made this list right after my first playthrough. The thing
Okay.
that makes this fight so infuriating on a first playthrough is its goddamn flame AoE. It's similar to the Smelter
Odd.
demons from Dark Souls 2. If you get too close to it, it'll slowly whittle your health down for some pretty significant AoE damage, and Geralt will continue to burn even after retreating. Along with this AoE, you have to avoid the electric magic from Philippa, who resides on the platform above. This isn't too difficult, as there's an extremely obvious purple indicator on the ground showing you where she's striking, but having that there
Man.
means you can't retreat in that direction if the elemental
This is such a reckless fight. Like, this person is rushing in. Who's fighting? Like, it's just rushing in. You could have dodged so many
gives you
attacks.
any trouble. I've deducted major points from this boss because once you know you can douse its flames temporarily with Axii, this fight becomes a standard one with an elemental such as the Golem and Earth one from earlier. The only difference is this one has some pretty easy to avoid magic added on as well. Number 45, Eredin, King of the Wild Hunt. This is the
This is the final boss. I mean, I will tell you this. Emerlith was harder to fight than Ered. Garanthir, I don't even remember. He was harder to fight than Eredin. I mean, this is such an unbelievable thing. The final boss of the game was so easy to beat. It was so, you just had like different ways, different stages you had to fight him on. But in reality, he was so easy to beat.
final boss of The Witcher 3. The king, the general of the villainous gang this game's been hyping up for possibly hundreds of hours, is at the halfway point of the ranking. This video is just my opinion, as I said, but honestly, I think he's unanimously...
I will tell you, yeah, unanimously, it is one of the worst final bosses I've seen. I expected him to be much stronger. You fight his navigator in the cave, and then you fight Emerlith, which is much tougher, and you fight Garanthir, which is also much tougher. And then this guy is way below that. It was a disappointment.
A very disappointing and very easy final boss. 2 of his generals are still to come on this list. The fight isn't even that good either. He does bare minimal damage considering it's an endgame fight, is extremely slow to attack you sometimes, and often just stands there all...
I think the only thing I can say about him, he managed to block your attacks. That's the only thing. And he just teleports here and there, and he's pretty predictable. He's extremely predictable. And when he takes you to this new stage where he fights you, he becomes even more predictable. That's the part about him that's so odd. Like, even at that point, being on the same like level even in terms of level, he's so easy to beat. Why is he so easy to beat? I have never really understood. Why not make him like a tank? Why not make his health like really, really high? That would have like changed the fight dynamics so much.
Awkwardly for a while, mocking you. After you've dealt a little bit of damage to him, he'll teleport you to an icy arena away from the boats and the fire. This is where he actually uses some special moves, like one where he teleports to one end of the arena and will try to hit Geralt with many attacks like a wave of ice or eruptions from afar. Every single one of these can be dodged by literally strafing left or right. Sadly, I can't say much more about this boss. It's definitely disappointing considering the build up to it, but thank God the incredible story and ending of this game compensates for it. Number 44, the Hermit, Lady of the Lake. So this one is similar to Salma and the Witch of Link's in the fact that it's a mage that will stand there.
It more like reminded me of one of the hardest fights I had, the Ophiri Mage. But it's close to that, but it's not as difficult as that.
And for ranged magic attacks at you from a distance. The difference with this one is that the arena is much bigger and cooler. This gives space for the Hermit to attack you from a distance and forces you to close the large gap.
Like it is like a reskin of Ophiri Mage. That's what I feel.
To punish him. And he has some very big AoE attacks, like a horizontal whirlpool looking one. His attacks hit much, much harder than previous mages and have much larger AoEs. And it's a pretty challenging fight if you can't close the gaps. Once you defeat him, though, the Lady of the Lake bequeaths upon Geralt the Erendite.
Oh, Erendite.
Royal Griffin, the first boss in the whole game.
When you fight the Royal Griffin, if you're in the new game, not the new game plus, if you're in the new game, you're genuinely gonna have a bit harder time. But if you have like done everything there is to do in Void Tortured, it becomes easy because you're over leveled then. You're properly over leveled and it becomes so easy to beat him.
Comes up just under the halfway point in the ranking. Why? Because he's the first boss. When you fight the Royal Griffin for the first time, you're likely really inexperienced with the combat of The Witcher 3, which I would say is quite complex compared to most other games. Not only that, but Vesemir hands you the crossbow just before the fight begins, something you have no idea how to use because it was just handed to you. The Griffin can tank a good few hits and sinks Geralt.
I like the fact that he has done this from the first playthrough kind of view. Because in the first playthrough, I found him one of the hardest beings to beat. Because when I fought the Devil by the Well, I thought, okay, this is hard. What is the Griffin going to be like? And it was genuinely like another tough opponent. And I was like level 2 or 3 at that point. Like I was nowhere near to beating him. It felt like fighting a tank of health or something.
Geralt has a minimal moveset at this point in the game, unless on New Game Plus. This can make it somewhat lengthy and will cause some issues for brand new players. Number 42, Arachnomorph Colossi. I hate these things. They're so sporadic and move so quickly and unpredictably, it can be a real mission getting it.
They are a bit like Endregas, but they're like super fast Endregas.
A hit on them. The Colossi version of these Arachnomorph enemies is absolutely no exception. This thing runs around so damn much, it feels like more of a fight reaching it than it is to actually fight it. The only time it stops scuttling around is to spew saliva at you, which stuns you, is poorly coordinated and hard to dodge, which means it just runs away again right after doing it. Make this fight a gank and you've got yourself one infuriating cat and mouse chase until you're finally able to...
These guys really pissed me off. They have killed me 2 times.
Stun lock it in a corner.
Yeah, the point is they ran away. That was the hardest part.
Number 41, the 3 bears. Probably another kind of surprising one. Why is a gank of bears ranked so low in the list? It's for a couple of reasons. I died to these guys 3 times on my first death march.
How did you die to these guys? I actually finished it like in the first moment. Like they were not hard. I'll tell you which were the hardest. It was the pigs. The pigs were the hardest to beat.
Playthrough while in full Ursine armor, which is heavy armor.
The pigs were like whales. They were impossible. This is easy compared to that.
These bears deal so much damage, it's unreal. And with there being 3 of them, one of which being a cub, it makes this fight genuinely challenging if you aren't prepared for it. Not to mention that their health bars are each equivalent to that of a double-decker bus. Combining all these factors makes the fight with the 3 bears...
But I still argue like it was much easier. It was much easier.
It's genuinely annoying and somewhat challenging. Number 40, Iocast, the Silver Basilisk. I've said before that Basilisks can be a real pain in the ass to fight, and the Iocast just reinforces my point even more. This silver version has some different attacks that have some of the most ungenerous hitboxes that will hit you really hard. When I say I really...
If you fight that thing on Death March, 2 shots and you're dead. I speak from experience.
Really suck at fighting these things, I mean it. This is a creature that will absolutely punish you for just mindlessly swinging at it. Although for this Basilisk in particular, you get some assistance, they are completely useless and really won't make the fight any easier at all, and will only really do anything if you purposely lead the Basilisk to them. The 2 redeeming factors to this fight is that he doesn't like Igni very much, and healing isn't all too problematic by just backing up. I highly recommend getting White Rathid's Decoction for fights like these. It's very useful for the whole game, and Swallow doesn't really do very much if enemies do DOT. Number 39, Spoon Collector, the Spotted White. Species of the Spotted White.
I've not fought the Spotted White. Like, I've not Absolutely. Only once, but I like lifted her curse.
Is one that witches actually drove to extinction, or so they thought. This one sits in a house in Tucson in literally a fucking bath of spoons. It wears spoons all over its body, including its head. It's decorated its house with spoons, hanging them from the ceiling on chains and diversing them on shelves. This trickster of a necrophage has so many spoons in his arena, he can literally sink in them and teleport around. Anyway, the difficulty of this fight is a mixture of how damn bulky this thing is and how often he teleports around. Sometimes he'll teleport generously, other times he'll just do it so much you can't get a single hit on him. So this is pretty RNG based, but regardless of what he does, he tanks so many hits and retaliates so quickly with solid damage, this fight can be pretty long and pretty painful.
I probably should
much
fight it once again.
Early. I never really enjoy fights that feel RNG based, and this one really does. Good news is you don't need to kill him as part of the quest, so if you want to let the little guy live happily with his spoons, then go for it. It's one of those bosses that I've only actually fought twice. Never again. Number 45, Morvut the Fiend. I really like
I like the design of this monster, and it properly felt like a contract that you were taking a monster, because you fight him and he runs away and you have to track him again and fight him again, and that feels like a proper quest. That feels like a proper contract quest, and that is, I think, how most of the Witcher games should be, because when you fight something and they're losing, they're obviously gonna run away. That's especially in terms of like animals and stuff, and monsters, it should be something like that. This fiend, when it gets injured, it has lost its health, it runs away. I like that. There was like a monster behavior in that. There we go, me becoming a monster specialist.
This fight, it's pretty unique and it feels a lot like a Dark Souls boss. Sorry for the Dark Souls comparisons. A lot of it's really hard.
Look at how good it is.
Have some obvious...
Look at the design of this. This looks like a zebra in a reverse, but it's a really good reskin.
And require you to nail your dodge timings in order to not get hit for massive damage. Its claw attacks are like this to a lesser degree, but don't feel too rapid to be undodgeable. Once you get his health bar down to 50%, he'll hypnotize you, limiting your vision for a while. As Geralt says, he leaves you to go and lick his wounds or to heal up. Using a Witcher senses, you must track him down and finish him off. The fight is no different here, just a different arena. His hypnotizing attack is really unique, and although Geralt is left completely helpless without being able to use any of his abilities during this time, I think it adds a really nice aspect to the fight.
Why is he getting hit by it so easily? It's easy to like dodge this guy. It's the easiest being to dodge, because you know when it's gonna attack.
That requires nailing
like its attack pattern is very predictable as well.
Dodge timings and really analyzing the Fiend's moveset, which is something I can't really say for most of the other bosses in this game. Number 37, Royal Wyvern. Also, I just noticed up until this point, if you dislike how I pronounce Wyvern, deal with it. But...
It's fine, man. It's fine, man. You can pronounce it however you like. It's great. It's great that you have like your own pronunciation. I love it.
What can I say? It's another Wyvern. But the addition of the word royal in its name honestly does mean something. It means...
It's just a bigger, tankier, and harder to beat.
It has more health. It deals more damage. It's a lot bigger. And it's even more of a pain in the ass to fight than the lesser Wyverns. Thankfully, you can still shoot him out of the sky before he does the flyby attacks, which makes it easier, but the damage he does and the amount that he poisons you can make for a very irritating and tough fight. Number 36, the Three Little Pigs. Hey.
I'm gonna tell you a secret. I have died in this fight over double digits. I had no idea how to beat them. I couldn't beat them. And you know what? I was literally searching like console commands. How to install a console and get them killed. There was no option. Eventually, I managed to use so many potions and decoctions and make an overpower build just for these three. They're like proper tanks. They're whales. They hit you and you die. One shot on deathmatch. And not only that, when you try to kill them, their health is so damn high. It's unbelievable. What was the point?
Hey, I just want to point out that this boss was harder than the final boss of the game.
Yes. Yes.
Do not underestimate these three little guys. There are 3 reasons why they are so low on this list. Firstly, they have a ton of HP. I understand that in the footage I was using a sword that was nearly broken.
Yeah, I'm just gonna tell you, like, I'm so ashamed that these guys managed to kill me so many times. So many times. I don't know why. The moment they got behind me, I was finished. When they surrounded me, they were finished. So I targeted one and I managed to kill him. Like, I consistently targeted one, and then when I managed to get the other one, I used decoctions, I used so many things. I was poisoned in that, and I still managed. Like, eventually I was like, oh my god, I did this.
But still, god damn, they can tank some hits. Secondly, they hit like freight trains. I remember I died to these things twice on my first death.
I've died more than 10 times. I can tell you that for sure because they pissed me off.
March playthrough, and ever since then I've been genuinely terrified of embarrassing myself again. And thirdly, and probably the most important reason,
you do not want to fight them on Death March. I fought them on Death March and they destroyed me.
They run around so damn much it makes it aggravating to try and get any hits on them.
They're running around is the problem, because when they run around, you basically, if you lose the sight of one pig, that's it. You're finished. You're finished. They are all gonna corner you.
All of these reasons combine to make a very slow and kind of annoying battle. Not to mention how useless Sienna is. I'm surprised she even knows how to swing a sword. If you think this boss is easier than number 36, I give you full permission to relentlessly scold me for it in the comments. Number 35, the Forktail Dragon of Firestar. Look, I'm gonna be honest, I'm writing the script by myself, and I'm really getting tired of writing about the damn reskins, so I'll say the obvious.
His Forktail is like a reskin of a Wyvern.
Yes, this guy is ranked so low because he's scaled for endgame, and he's also an optional mini-boss, so you could run into him super...
And there's also sheep you have to sacrifice to him, but he didn't eat the sheep that I brought to him, and I lost the sheep.
Really, and get absolutely decimated by him. But despite all this, please, a moment of silence for the sheep that we took to him. If you can keep this sheep alive, you're a god among men.
I lost it. I'm sorry. I'm not a god among men. I lost it. I had no idea where it went.
Number 34, Alpha Garcane. I still don't understand this boss.
Disgusting.
Really. I'm not sure if you can dodge a couple of his attacks like his deafening AoE, although I've never actually tried.
It's like a banshee or something combined.
Like just running away from it. Similarly to a lot of the
like a banshee or a Katakan combined, I think.
This side, his counterattacks come so quickly it's nearly impossible to predict and block accordingly, and he'll probably stun lock you into a few swipes that will do a good bit of damage to you. You can see in the footage that he's extremely easy to stun lock, but the amount of bulk this boss has means that you can't keep doing it for long before he'll inevitably swipe back at you. Not to mention that every single time he hits you, you'll get poisoned, so healing with anything other than the White Rapids decoction is a no-go.
No, you just use Quinn Shield and you can heal yourself. And when you're fighting these, I've seen like a trend whenever he fights bosses, he's not using any decoctions or, potions or anything. I think he's genuinely trying to rank the bosses based on, how you can fight them normally. That's not something I would do.
He often leaps up into the air and slams back down onto the ground, so the only thing you can use to get used to these attacks is his shadow. All in all, with some pretty hard-hitting and rapid attacks, the Alpha Garcane will definitely cause a few people's deaths. Number 33, Phantom of the...
This is a shit boss. It's a Bruxa combined with a Wraith. That's all there is to it.
The Amphitheater.
But there is like one big weakness it has, and that is Superior Moon Dust. I used it and it became so easy to beat.
What did I tell you about all these Wraith reskin bosses? Yeah, we've got another one of them, so I can just get through it pretty quickly. The quest associated with it, but other than that, how to enjoy the play, is arguably the easiest way to get the Wisdom Chivalric virtue for the Erendite, and that's the only reason I ever do this treasure hunt in the first place. And as I've always said as justification for putting specific reskin bosses like this lower on the list, you encounter it accidentally sometimes, and it has damage and health scaled for endgame. Number 32, Bruxa. I really wish I could say this boss is cool, but I can't. Unless I'm missing something or misstrategizing.
I think the only thing is it like moves quickly. That's the only thing for it, because it moves quickly, it becomes hard to fight.
With them, it's pretty irritating to fight any of these things, and I say these things.
And these things properly go invisible. Like, that's proper invisibility.
Because there are multiple of them dispersed throughout the DLC, not one of them is less annoying than the other. They go invisible and become invulnerable for a short amount of time while unleashing a relentless fury of attacks of Geralt. This is pretty easy though, since you can just block them, but where this fight can be a pain in the ass is how many windows you have to attack them. The roar is always a good time to get a hit or two in, but you have to be in the right position to do this. If you're good at hitting her and she's swiping at you, you can get some crit damage done. But
one thing I realized when they roar, if you quickly throw a bomb, like if you time it accurately, they can't really dodge it. Northern Wind basically does so much when you do it, because they get stuck in one place and you can tank with that attack like Rend. You can tank straight up when you hit them with Northern Wind. Speaking from experience, of course.
But this isn't exactly easy. Often you can be swinging at her and you'll trade blows though, which is worth it since she doesn't have the most health in the world. The Bruxa deals pretty decent damage, and the attacks she unleashes when she isn't invisible can be tough to dodge or parry, and these moments are where you'd want to swing aimlessly anyways unless you want the fight to last 2 years. As I mentioned, there are multiple of these throughout the DLC, so once you fight one, the fight with the others will definitely go much faster.
First time it gets set up, first time it's pretty hard. The first time I fought a Bruxa, because this was the first time they were introduced, and when I fought them, they were really hard to beat. This one was hard to beat, and it was also in a closed environment, so it wasn't that easy for me. I was like, no, I want to get out of there. But once I got used to fighting it in there, it became easier.
But they're still annoying as hell to fight, and it's something...
Their voice was the annoying part. I hated it the most.
I really don't get excited for when replaying Blood and Wine. Number 31, Caranthir of the Wild Hunt. This one may be slightly controversial in placement, and my justification for it is probably terrible, not gonna lie. Honestly, I think it's just because I suck at this fight. More specifically, I suck at fighting the—
No, it is genuinely hard to fight, I would say. But wait, did he like rank Emerlith below it? I would rank Emerlith actually higher than this.
the elementals he summons, but we'll get to them. Caranthir is the only boss in the game that you fight as both Ciri and Geralt, with Geralt jumping in when Caranthir—
I think why this fight seems exhausting, because you have to fight him 2 times. You might think, oh no, this guy is tougher than Emerlith. Technically, he's not tougher than Emerlith. He's easier to dodge compared to Emerlith. And you can absolutely take no damage from him on Death March, and I have done that. I will tell you that from experience. The only thing is, you just have to like observe how he attacks. Once you do that, you understand how easy it's to beat him. He doesn't attack from distance. His attack from like point blank range are predictable. Like you can easily sidestep them. He's genuinely easy to beat. It's not hard to beat him. If you just pay attention once, you're going to be able to beat him very easily. It's just that fight with him is a bit longer than Emerlith. That might be the reason it seems like this is the harder one compared to Emerlith. But in reality, he's easier to beat than him.
It reaches 70.
It's my take.
The first
Just my
phase
take.
of Ciri can be pretty simple, but goddamn if Caranthir hates staying still. He's teleporting from one place to the other every—
Yeah, I think that's also one thing. When I was fighting him as Ciri, there was something seriously wrong. Like he was teleporting like crazy. At the first, I thought, oh, there was something wrong. I have to do something else maybe to keep him in one place. But no, actually, sometimes he does, teleport in a bit weird way. He does it many
2
times.
seconds and it can make the fight, as I said with the spotted white, a little annoying. Thankfully, this doesn't last long before Geralt joins the gang and takes on Caranthir himself. The general now has access to multiple new attacks, like one where he summons a portal above him and conjures an ice
Just ignore the ice elemental, attack him.
elemental.
It's that simple.
I honestly was getting one-shot by these elementals on my first Deathmarch playthrough, and I was in full master-crafted Ursine armor.
I mean, look at how big the field is. You can genuinely ignore the ice elemental, attack Caranthir. It's that easy.
They have insane bull considering they're made of ice. They turn the fight into a gank, and he can continuously summon them. I had 3 coming at me at once on my first playthrough, and it made it so tough to even see where Caranthir was, it led to my death a couple of times. Aside from his elementals, he has access to a sort of soul mass attack that is poorly telegraphed, and he can send these out in either a group of 5 or one individual.
Yeah, he sends you these photon balls, but he's still easy to beat. Ignore the elemental. Fight him directly.
They do a hefty amount of damage and inflict frost damage and slow down onto you, which can make
Because he will bring the elemental back.
closing the gap between you and him much more difficult. The caveat is that each of his attacks have a wind-up time, so if you can get in and hit him before he unleashes the attack, you can deal big damage to him and also get a few swings in while he's staggered. So if you get good at closing the distance on him, which is most easily done by ignoring the ice elementals, he's not the bulkiest boss in the game, so interrupting his build-ups to deal big damage to him will make the fight pass in no time. Number 30, Shrieker. Think Basilisk, but with 8 million times.
The thing is, Shrieker becomes a bit harder to fight because he gives you bleeding damage. And you can't really ignore that even on Death March. Okay? Experience. You just have to make sure you stay on his side. Don't get in front of him. If you get in front of him, you're definitely going to get damaged. Definitely. There is no avoiding that.
More aggression and bleed damage. I remember on my first Deathmarch playthrough, this guy drove me insane because I insisted on playing recklessly without adapting to the fact that he guards himself and retaliates with almost instant attacks that cause bleeding and can stun you.
You have to attack him exactly in the position he is right now. You have to be on the side when you attack him. Especially on Death March. You can't stay in front of him on Death March because I have done that. I can tell you like that is not how it works. I died like 2 times and then I realized, okay, I might have to be a bit more careful.
I kind of dislike how quickly he shields with his wing, because if you're hitting him...
See, the moment he extends his wing and it feels like it has a very high reach, and that bleeding damage, you're not going to be able to dodge it.
And he does this, it's almost instant, so you could be halfway through his...
You see, the moment he's trying to get around him, that's when you get on the side. You keep sidestepping again and again till you get to his sides. And you do get that opportunity like very quickly.
Swing, and he'll just insta-block and retaliate with an attack that hurts very, very hard. Salt is added to the wound because you can't heal with Swallow, so you have to heal with White Raffid's decoction.
No, you just use Quinn, shield, and basically the bleeding damage just disappears. So you can use Swallow.
Seems to be a pattern.
I would say use a Swallow and use something to eat, Combine those 2 things and use Gwen Shield, and he becomes easy to beat.
With these Wyverns and Basilisks. Number 29, Daphne the Banshee. Still not done with the Wraith reskins. And we still have 3 more to go after this one. Daphne, though, starts the few that are pretty unique in their design. They're still weak to Yrden as always, but Daphne is faster than the others, has access to a scream that will summon skeletons to come and gank you. But that's about it. Just spam Yrden and kill these skeletons in a few hits. And as always, I'll mention it again, she's this far...
I mean, her attack pattern is very similar to the one before, I forgot her name, and very similar to like that Long Locks or something. Like their attack patterns are very, very
down
similar.
The list because of the gank and the fact that her damage and health is scaled for later game. Number...
Man, am I a nerd? I know so much of this.
28, the Archgriffin. Take the Shrieker from...
Oh. I accidentally ran across the Archgriffin. That's the thing. Accidentally. But I don't think this one. I ran accidentally across the one that was in... where was it? Like near Novigrad. And that was the worst mistake I did. Worst mistake I did. It just one-shot me.
Before, make it more bulky, and you've got yourself the Archgriffin. I really hate not being able to say much about the bosses as we go further down the list, but reskins are exhausting, and I can't really say much more about them without repeating myself.
He almost fell down.
It has more health, and it deals more damage than the others. Number 27, Whamma Wham the Rock.
Oh, this guy's hard to beat. This guy is the hardest boss to beat, especially on Death March. He has killed me on Death March so many times. Like, he has genuinely pissed me off. And the way I fought him was I used decoctions. I think it was 3 of them. I don't remember which one. They were mostly based on... was it Troll one? Or... I don't remember. I used decoctions, which basically helped me with health regeneration. I went with those. And there was a decoction that basically bugs out decoctions and you don't lose health. You just start gaining health and you can tank as many decoctions as you want inside yourself. And that is what I did when I fought this guy. And that's how I managed to beat him. Like, I was genuinely not able to beat him. I lost like 5 times in a row. I was like, no, I have to fight. I have to find some other way to do it.
Troll. This thing attacks you before you even know about it. Your initial intentions as you walk into the cave...
And it causes you fire damage, I think.
...is to talk to it about the miners that I, quote, it whammed. After you interrogate him, you get the choice whether to let him off or to fight the poor thing. I've fought him 3 times now, and on my first playthrough especially, he gave me quite a thrashing. Maybe I just sucked at the game, or I just suck fighting.
No. He's genuinely hard to fight. You don't suck at the game. He's genuinely hard to fight.
The rock trolls, but I found him so unpredictable, and his attacks seem to deal 70% of my health bar. One thing that makes fighting these things so difficult is the fact that you can't hit the back or the arms if you cover them up. So the only place you can deal damage is from its front, where, needless to say, most of the attacks come from. He doesn't have that much health, but having your windows to attack narrowed down by so much by his arms make the fight pretty difficult, as you need to know when to back up and take it easy. You don't see it in the footage, but there's an attack where he can just blindly run forward, unleashing a frenzy of attacks with his arms that I swear to God...
Yeah, this is the part I'm like, why isn't he doing that? Why isn't he doing that? This is a very lucky fight.
One-shot you on Death March, no matter what you're wearing. Number 26, Jin. This thing is a cloud of smoke. Icy, electric smoke. And let me tell you something, I have been very generous with this boss's placement. If you have enemy upscaling on, it will one-shot you with almost every attack it has.
There you go. He did say it. Don't use upscale. When you use enemy upscaling, bosses get so much tougher, especially on Death March. You don't want, but it does give you experience, so it might actually be worth the risk.
And I mean it. I actually gave up killing this.
I had enemy upscaling on. I don't remember on which one. I think it was Cyclops near the when you get the bear armor. Yeah, and that guy one-shot me. And then I turned enemy upscaling off. And that was a Death March. That was my experience. Don't use enemy upscaling or Death March. You're literally inviting the whole world to kill you.
Thing on my first playthrough because I was just not having fun. I'm not sure why. Maybe the game classes the Jin as a normal enemy, so it decides to scale it up with you. I'm not sure, but with that setting on, my attempt to...
I never had been able to figure out its attack pattern. I'm just gonna say that. I'd look at the attack pattern, and I've never been able to figure out how it works.
Kill it on my live stream was 1 hour and 14 minutes long because the only way I could do anything was just by standing behind the master in the center of the boat and waiting for Gwen to replenish. Because of this, he was really hard to rank. This entire video was pretty hard to rank if I'm honest, but I sailed with here because even without getting one shot consistently, he's just absolutely relentless with his attacks. He just doesn't stop sometimes. I'm not sure if you're even supposed to dodge them, but they seem so sporadic and unpredictable. I'm not entirely sure what Project Red wanted us to do here. It's a pretty annoying boss that will absolutely cause some issues for people, and do yourself a favor and turn off enemy upscaling in the options if you're playing on any difficulty higher than just the story, at least for this fight. Number 25, the Crones of Crookback Bog. As is the nature with most ganks in any...
It's too high. Especially if you're playing a series, this is too high. This was the easiest fight for
game
me.
involving a lot of bosses, having the battle be 3 versus 1 adds a substantial amount of difficulty to the fight and is definitely, to me, the
Yeah, the crowd does make it seem like it's harder, but genuinely, it's not hard.
hardest one is Ciri. The Brewess isn't much of a problem due to how slow she is and her lack of ability to do anything but stand there taking.
I took out one of the two that was moving faster first, the one who has that crow things, and then I went for Brewess. Brewess, you have to make sure she doesn't hit you. She's slow, and then you go for the last one.
The Wispess and the Weavers can absolutely cause a problem or two with their irritating persistency and their ability to get around the arena and cover distance on you, or in some cases, hit you with ranged attacks. Ciri's powers can help with the gank aspect of it, but for some reason, they can still hit you even if you're flying around about all over the place, and since you're Ciri, the only way to heal is to not get hit for a while, which of course is difficult since you're dealing with more than one enemy. One of the few fights in the game that will demand some sort of efficient camera management and one that'll test your skills in the use of Ciri's powers. And after all of this, the Weaver still...
I think the biggest thing with them is when you hit them, they tank that hit. They take it hit and hit while doing it. I don't know what I would call it, but basically they do not flinch. Like, they take the hit and they basically hit through that hit. That's the problem with them. So every time you get close to them, teleport through them and follow up with like an attack immediately. So you get an attack behind them and get away. You will eventually get like a critical attack on them. Man, I have too much knowledge regarding this.
Your amulet and buggers off with it. Way to make the fight even more annoying.
Don't do that.
Penitent.
I forgot about this. You're not going to believe what I did with this. Okay? When I was in this fight, okay, this thing manages to summon more wraiths indefinitely. And you know what I did? I let it do that. I let it do that. And when the fight was over, I had so much emerald and eminence dust in my inventory that I became so rich. I can't really explain it. But the fact is, before this fight, I had like 8,000 crowns. After this fight, I had almost 38 or 48. I don't remember. I think it was probably 38. Like, my wealth quadrupled instantly after I fought this.
Hooray, another Wraith! Good luck
Reskin.
dealing significant damage to this one at the start, though. The battle with the Penitent is just a time game. You're waiting for Mikyar to light the brazier in the lighthouse.
I was just waiting for more wraiths to come. This was like one of my best fights. It made me rich.
And what do you know?
I don't know if they have fixed this. If they have fixed it, I would be disappointed, but it was fun. The more wraiths you beat, the more loot there was to take away.
The fight turns into a gank after 30 seconds with additional wraiths joining the party.
Yeah.
Exactly what we needed. The goal at the beginning of this slog of a battle is to take out the ads while also making sure you don't take any damage from the Penitent itself, as it hurts quite a bit and you want as much as your health available for the final segment. Once Mikyar lights the brazier, the Penitent will disappear and summon 6 wraiths all at once to come and attack you. If you suck at fighting these things like I do, then it'll be really irritating having to kill all of them once they've spawned. However, each one takes a chunk.
I actually find this quite easy. I find this quite easy to beat them.
Of health off the Penitent. If you manage to kill all of them, the Penitent will respawn and you can kill it just by spamming it. The nature of the fight and having it be a gank with some persistent and stunlock masterful enemies, it makes the Penitent an annoying stamina game sometimes, and it will definitely cause a lot of problems for a lot of players. Number 23, Old Spear Tip, the Cyclops. The embodiment of bizarre hitboxes that can be generous or ungenerous, this Cyclops is a somewhat sporadic brute that runs around in this small cave.
This is like a Cyclops. This is like a simple Cyclops reskin.
Trying to pull his punches at Geralt and Lambert. The thing that adds so much difficulty to this fight is the unpredictability of him and his hip.
The only bad part about him, you're doing it in dark, so use a cat potion and you will actually see how easy it becomes. Like, just with one potion, this fight becomes 20 times easier. And the thing is that only thing you have to watch out for him running straight at you. That's the only thing you watch out for. And it will become a lot easier. And you can also avoid him, so there's that as well.
Hitboxes. Like,
and there's one more thing, that I fought him on Deathmarch. He has killed me on 2 shots.
Come on, you're telling me this punch hits me, but amongst all of this, I don't get hit? What's with that? Anyway, Project Red utilized the bullet sponge mechanic again here. The footage doesn't do it justice really, but this guy on Deathmarch can attack more hits than most.
Deathmarch, he will kill you in 1 hit. I think he has probably killed me in 1 or 2 hits.
To the bosses before it and will punish you with, as I said, some unpredictable and hard-hitting punches. And honestly, compared to all the other bosses before it, that's reason enough to put him this low on the list. The problem with ranking bosses like this in a game like Witcher 3 is the scaling with difficulty. A lot of them scale incredibly high, from Blood and Broken Bones to Deathmarch, and
upscaling like really breaks it. Everyone you fight becomes 20 times easier. And wait, why has the Beast re-entry added Cyclops now? Like, shouldn't it have been a way too earlier? Didn't you go to like Skellige or something?
Seemingly voids some of my justification for them being lower down. From my experience and from looking at this boss closely, it's undoubtedly in the harder tiers, and quite frankly, a lot of this game's bosses are fairly easy, and I'm sure that statement is unanimous. Number 22, Long Locks, one of the very few forgivable Wraith.
Oh, I hate this boss. Do you know why? Because it's in such a small space and it summons like an army of like weird skeletons, and it's this Bruxa and Wraith combined. Like it's worst. Especially I played it on a death march and I wanted to like kill myself.
Reskin bosses, Long Locks resides at the very top of the tower in the Land of a Thousand Fables. She's a sarcastic representation of Rapunzel, but unfortunately Geralt can't.
And that Rapunzel hanged herself and made it so hard for us.
Can't rescue this damsel in distress because she's already hung herself with her hair. Morbid. The strategy here is similar to.
I mean, this is such a dark, I don't know, humor or something. Like Rapunzel has basically hanged herself with her own hair.
What it is with the others. Yerden is a big help, and Rend can definitely assist in dealing chunks and chunks of damage. At certain
the problem is when you kill these people while you're fighting these people, she's healing. That is the problem. And her, like the way you fight the navigator in with Kira, that guy becomes more easy to beat, right? In her case, that does not happen that fast, okay? This is genuinely a long fight if you don't plan it properly.
Intervals though, she will scream a purple aura, disappear into mist, and then skeletons will jump in from the railings. These skeletons, these goddamn skeletons, they stagger easily, but they hit harder than Eredin does. Not only that, but it's a gank, so if you don't have Whirl, you're gonna have a very, very tough time with this one. And as always, on Deathmatch, these things seem to have more health than most enemies in the game.
You know, you see that chair in the middle? So I accidentally, like, I think it was on my second playthrough, I used Yerden and she got stuck near the chair. And I basically used Whirlwind. And basically, she couldn't do anything. She was just stuck. I think it was a bug.
And they shamelessly gank you. And on top of all of this, Long Locks will reappear twice more with a more varied moveset than Wraiths and Banshees than that she's a reskin of, then disappears and summons yet more skeletons. I'm not going to say much more. The damage is insane, the gank is annoying, the skeletons are tanky, and that's it for the penultimate.
There you go, you see her
Wraith
health.
reskin of the list. Number 21, Grottore the Spriggan. Although we're
it's easy.
Getting lower on the list, and I really should be talking more about why the bosses are getting harder, I can't really talk very long about the reskins as per usual. The Spriggan is basically a reskin of the Lessons from earlier, but once again, its damage and health is scaled way higher than its predecessors, and it's found somewhat late in the Blood and Wine DLC. This one also does not share the weaknesses to Igni, so it makes one of the aspects that
and this guy almost died.
Trivializes its friends completely unviable. But what really brings this much lower on the list is the addition of arguably the most irritating enemy in the entire game, Archospores.
Yes.
These are all around the arena, exploding in a massive AoE that poisons you and stuns you for a while.
I think it was like one of the newest enemies that they introduced in the Blood and Wine. And I like it. They did something new, but it's also annoying. Like the amount you found them in all over Toussaint. Oh my god.
Depending on where the bulbs are, you can be stun locked and killed very quickly. Definitely focus the Archospores first to make the fight more straightforward and allow yourself to focus Grottore a little. He's pretty tanky and you can get help from Francois, so you'll have some help, but that doesn't really make it much easier. He kind of just acts like a distraction. Number 20, Ophinicus the Archgriffin. This Archgriffin has traded health for damage, but it's yet another reskin, so I can't say much about it. I'll repeat myself though, the Archgriffins are extremely punishing for getting close to them, cause bleed so you can't heal with Swallow, fly into the air to spit poison at you, which also stops you from healing with Swallow, and Ophinicus is the most egregious example of this being irritating. The only thing that makes this fight easier than its predecessors is its small health bar. It's eating a beast blood pellet or something.
But the thing is, if you are like, wait, where do you fight him? I don't remember.
And has traded its health for absolutely insane damage. This boss will absolutely one-shot you on Deathmarch and is the
yes, he does one-shot you on Deathmarch.
most punishing boss outside of the top 10.
That
the
I'll agree
that
with.
You've been fighting a bunch of Archgriffins before.
Or almost 90% of your health will be gone on Deathmarch.
Before this, so you'll probably have a lot of experience and knowledge on what attacks you can and cannot punish yourself. But if you're like me, you suck at the game and
It died in such a weird way. It died in such a weird way. Look at this.
so you'll probably have a lot of experience and knowledge on what attacks you can and cannot punish yourself. But if you're like me, you suck at the game and by extension suck at fighting these birds. I strongly remember dying to this guy multiple times on both of my Deathmarch playthroughs, and now it's the bane of my existence. Number 19, the Wraith of Iris von Everec. It's a
Oh, another reskin and the worst one. It is such a hard one to beat. I think she escaped in the pictures or something. Oh, this was stupid.
final Wraith reskin, and it's arguably the most creative and forgivable reskin they've done. In a dark, twisted arena, you fight against the Banshee manifestation of Olgierd von Everec's wife, Iris. As usual, Yerden is an extremely valuable spell that will slow her down.
I don't think he has used Moon Dust, especially Superior Moon Dust. Like when you use it, you permanently make them. Maybe they like removed that or something, but I have fought, I don't remember which Wraith, and I used like Superior Moon Dust on them, and the Wraith when disappeared and reappeared, it never went, corporeal or something. It never went in that eternal state.
Light to do some pretty significant damage, but at many intervals or at time limits, Iris will open up a painting and absorb green energy from it. This does a very good job of telling you that it's healing her, and to stop this you have to ignore Iris temporarily and walk up to the painting and smash it with your sword. These heal her at quite a rapid rate, so you have to deal with them as soon as possible. She's also got quite a bit of health in comparison to other Wraiths and Banshees that makes this even more important. Depending on your damage and how quickly you can destroy these mirrors, the skirmish with Iris can be extremely lengthy and very difficult. Two other things that make this more tricky is that she goes invulnerable when she calls for the healing, and there's absolutely no limit on how many mirrors she can absorb from. Do you need any more reason to take out these mirrors yet? Number 18, Cloud Giant. Who are we fighting up here in the clouds? Nameless King? The fight with the Cloud Giant above the Land of 1,000 Fables is one with a very tough opponent in a gorgeous arena with lightning bolts striking down.
He's another reskin of, Cyclops. The only thing is, like, he jumps down in the clouds and comes up randomly. That's the only thing you need to watch out for. Otherwise, he's pretty
Giant's questionable decor. Majority of the Giant swings are pretty standard. He
that is what he does.
That on the ground in your direction, punches you with his free hand, just swipes all over the place.
There you go. Sivana is dead. She's never gonna survive an attack like that.
Deal damage. The thing is, though, is that just with the Cyclops and the other Giants in the game, the hitboxes on these attacks can be extremely ungenerous, and as expected from a ginormous metal pickaxe, hit like a...
If you have upscaling on when you fight him, you're gonna cry. You're gonna cry.
This Giant in particular has some unique attacks where it dives into the clouds and pops up elsewhere to attack you with a very fast swipe. That's about it though. The unpredictability, similarly to that of the old spear tip, can add a deceiving amount of difficulty, and as someone that's experienced it a lot, being squished by this thing in one hit is almost entirely unpleasant. Number 17, Monster of Tufo. One of the more unique bosses in the game, the Monster of Tufo is a red and white shell mob residing beneath the winery in Tucson.
I hate this one. I'm gonna be straight out honest. I hated it when I fought it at the beginning. I still hate it.
You'll notice with this monster that his back won't take any of your damage similar to rock trolls, but the front face is exposed and will take some decent damage if you swing at it. Obviously, the shell maw isn't easily just gonna let you do that. The gimmick to this boss is that you have to survive.
Oh, I like what he's done with the armor. Like, it looks really good.
Its standard swiping attacks until it decides to roll forward at you. You can dodge this roll and cause it to hit the wall. It will stagger and lie on the floor for a few seconds, completely vulnerable to any attacks you throw in its direction. Obviously, this is easier said than done, as the creature is incredibly fast and will hit very hard with its roll if you don't manage to dodge it. You have to roll it as well. You can't just sidestep it unless you get really lucky with spacing. It doesn't have the most HP in the world, but only being able to attack it when it's groveling on the floor after rolling into the wall.
I think it's Axie that you need to attack it with.
Makes it pretty difficult and lengthy. Number 16, Fugus the
This guy has one-shot me on Death March. Like, he's properly heartbeat.
Alright, let me explain. I don't think...
And I'll tell you this, he can attack you on every level. From distance, from point blank range, and he will kill you.
Anyone will agree with where I put this thing, but I swear to God, I have never been one-shot by an attack that deals DOT in this game before like I have from Fugus. He breathes fire at you, and not only does this burn you and deal damage over time, but it also absolutely destroys your health bar if the actual flamethrower hits you. Not only this, but he can very quickly throw a ball of fire in your direction that will one-shot you on Death March, and his health feels like triple.
Like, yeah, he's like, he can fight you on any distance and kill you, like, pretty easily. And I'm talking specifically about Death March as well.
On difficulty change. It's just another example of a boss that tanks every hit you throw at it on high difficulty.
Like, look at what his health, like the madness, like that flame does to his health. Look at that.
And throws back attacks that just obliterate you. Again, the justification for this may be a little strange, but anybody that's played this game on Death March should understand what I mean. Number 15, Goliath the...
Fun tale about this. When I was fighting him, I accidentally hit him with a crossbow bolt, and I was like, and it died, right? I'm like, what happened? I thought there was a bug or something, and I realized it like almost 11 months later, that if you attack him and accidentally hit him in the eye, you one-shot this guy. Like, there is a cheat code to this guy. There is this David Goliath achievement you get when you hit him like straight in the eye. And that is what I did by pure accident the first time. I was like, what just happened? And that's when I realized, oh, this was actually an implemented thing in that. It wasn't a bug.
The Giant, one of the most memorable bosses in the game for me, as it's the very first one immediately.
It's one of the most creatively beautiful reskin as well.
Immediately upon starting the Blood and Wine DLC. Goliath is the first challenge thrown at you after giving you an incredibly saturated cinematic of the beautiful land of Tucson. But he's just a reskin. I'd say he's the coolest looking, but it doesn't excuse the fact that it's actually just a reskin. This one can be compared...
Did I say it's the most beautiful reskin? Ignore that.
Most of the Cloud Giant. It wields a massive weapon that shreds your health bar and is super bulky. You do get help for this one from Milton, Perrin, Palmerin, Delawnful, and Guillaume.
I don't know if he's gonna say it, but if you do hit him like in the eye, it's one shot.
But once again, the only useful thing they really do is distract the Giant. And hey, why don't I repeat myself? The Reskins are lower on the list because they hit harder and have more health. Didn't want to mention it, but I will. There's actually a pretty easy way to one-shot this guy. The Giant is a reference to the biblical legend of David and Goliath, and you get an achievement called David and Goliath for shooting him in the eye with a crossbow bolt. This will instantly kill the Giant regardless.
I discovered it by pure accident, by the way. And like 11 months later, almost a year later, I realized, oh, there was an achievement for this. This was actually a real thing.
Of what health he has, and obviously makes the fight a joke. But I didn't really want to consider this when making the ranking, so he's further down. Number 14, Terrazane the Elemental.
The bad thing is, apologies if I butchered the pronunciation. It's fine, because I cannot pronounce some of these things as well. The thing is, the most problematic thing while fighting it is you're doing it inside a cave. And I tried like shooting the pillars, like I use art on them to make sure this. What I don't know why I think like I think like if I destroy the pillars, something will fall down upon them. You know, the gamer curiosity really gets to me, and nothing like that happened. This thing has destroyed me on Death March because I had enemy upscaling on. He two-shot me. Don't use enemy upscaling.
Elemental. You just need to take one look at the thing to understand why I say this is arguably one of the most bulky bosses in the entire game. Terrazane, whose name is a reference to World
Yeah,
of
these
Warcraft,
are the pillars I destroyed, and nothing
is
happened.
an earth elemental that resides underneath the Moldavi residence. After destroying the columns that supported its invincibility barrier, you battle it out with the brute. This is also a very memorable boss fight for me because each time I've fought it, it's been quite a long and tiresome battle. Terrazane has a lot of attacks in its arsenal, a lot of them involving punching the ground and conjuring rocks from the ground in your direction. He adds an AoE to a lot of his punches that increases their reach, and this never really feels unfair, and just like the other golems and elementals, Terrazane
He should probably play it on enemy upscaling. It feels so unfair.
will guard himself frequently with his arms that will absorb all damage you throw in its direction.
It was like for me, it was Kratos with armor.
On top of all of its defense that it also has immunities to Igni, Ard, and Axii, so good luck using any of these to your advantage. When he reaches 30% HP, he gets twice as aggressive, starts summoning rocks all over the damn place, Demon of Hatred style to confine you into an even smaller arena, and will swing at you what feels
I used, by the way, Northern Wind when he got to like 1/3 of its HP. That's when I got into Northern Wind, and that's how I dealt with that fight. And it was with enemy scaling then turned off because I realized it was a mistake at that point.
like twice as often with slightly
A
larger
lot of
AoEs.
enemies that
Although
you
it's fairly
fight
easy to get
with
hits in
enemy
due to how
space.
slow he is, the amount of health Terrazane has is crazy, which forces you to nail your dodges against his swings for a very long time. Combining all of these elements together makes a very long stamina game that requires you to always be on your guard and play as well as you can.
The thing is, when you use enemy upscaling with this many people, like I have discovered a lot of enemies that you fight, like the boss characters, and use enemy upscaling against them, it becomes so hard. It becomes so hard. They just become so harder than you actually anticipate. Enemy upscaling is genuinely makes the game very, very challenging.
Number 13, Slizzard Matriarch. There's
Even
something
low
about these two
difficulties.
Lizard dragon things that just makes this fight amongst one of the most difficult and infuriating in the entire game. The fight starts off by fighting the Slizzard female, the Matriarch. Their attacks involve flying around and lobbing fireballs at you and chomping at you while they're on the ground. All of these swipes hurt like a bus, and the fireballs will burn you and thus prevent you from healing and swallow. Much like Lud and Zolan from Dark Souls 2, this is a fight with an enemy that has some pretty standard attacks reminiscent of that of the Archgriffins and Basilisk in the list, so actually fighting the Matriarch itself can be pretty simple. However, at 50% HP, the baby Slizzard joins the fight, and this absolutely skyrockets the difficulty. It doesn't matter if their attacks are fairly simple, having two of them attacking you at once adds an insane amount of difficulty to a fight that, on paper, is pretty standard. If there was just one of them, it'd be a pretty boring game of shoot them out of the air, stay glued to their asses.
I did this quest in the first playthrough, like without difficulty.
And keep on swinging that sword. But now
And I was on, I think at that point, Blood and Broken Bones difficulty. I didn't fight it hard. The only thing that I found odd about these things, like they don't have eyes.
you have to manage two of them. One could be flying in the air, lobbing fireballs at you from a safe distance, while the other could be hunting you on the ground to try and throw punches at you. And managing one while also making sure you aren't getting hit by the other is very difficult. You've really got to make sure you don't nonchalantly tunnel vision one of them for too long, because you'll almost definitely get punished severely by the other. Their health is very generous, and the damage they deal is high considering there's two of them, and is one of the most egregious examples in this game of a boss fight where the difficulty absolutely skyrockets by simply making a number 2 instead of 1. Number 12, Myrif the Ice Giant. Another surprisingly early game boss that will cause a
I don't think he was hard to beat. Like, I personally didn't find him hard to beat. I think rescuing that guy was actually the harder choice. Like, it didn't seem worth it. Yeah, when I rescued him, he just went and kicked him.
A lot of people trouble. The Ice Giant is probably the OG giant boss you fight throughout Witcher 3, and what a tough one.
It is one of the most unique reskins. It is like a reskin of a Cyclops, but it is one of the most unique things that I fought. And it's good.
This is. What really makes this fight cool are the cinematics that come with it. The fight starts off with him fighting just with his bare hands after you or this idiot wakes him up. The true example of a boss that acts somewhat like that of a tutorial for the game's bigger, bulkier, slower, hard-hitting bosses. The Ice Giant is a slow brute that delays some of his standard stomps and hopes to throw you off guard and mess up your dodge timings, and god damn it works. The punishment for falling for his trickery is an attack that really, really hurts. According to the lore of this guy and the other Ice Giants like him, they absorb power from blizzards and colder weather in order to reach the peak of their physical strength. And since this giant is located in Unvik, there's plenty of cold and blizzards for him to draw from. The first phase, as I said before, has him fight similarly to Old Spear Tip the Cyclops from earlier, but when phase 2 begins, he goes crazy and starts wielding a large improvised flail that's made from a nearby shipwreck's anchor. This adds an absolutely disgusting AoE to all of his attacks, increases the damage they deal, reduces and mixes up the wind-ups, and also adds a deceivingly large range to them. Altogether though, the battle with Myrif is a brutally punishing one that acts as a tutorial for the game's bigger bosses, and I'm sure this one...
This is really hard to see for some reason. He's dodging this by a hair.
One is one everyone remembers for kicking their ass a couple of times at least. Number 11, Heresy the Arakas. This fight is oddly reminiscent of that of the Jinn from earlier.
See, like, yeah, if you use the golden aureole, it becomes very easy.
This fight seems uncharacteristically difficult, it almost feels unfair. And it feels this way unless you come here at least 10 levels higher than the quest's suggested one. I know I'm not the only one that feels like this. I'm sure, maybe a lot of people arrive here under level, but when I fought this guy in the past, I've come here 2 or 3 levels above the recommendation on Death March, and I still just get one shot while wearing full
Now on Death March, he's very hard to beat.
Bear armor. And this boss will one-shot you with almost every single attack it has if you have enemy upscaling enabled, just like the Jinn. This boss also shares the relentlessness and mercilessness of the Jinn, but to rub some salt into the wound, it adds a poison damage over time as well. This means that amongst all this crazy aggression, he will not let you heal with Swallow. So once again, the White Raffard's decoction is the only choice here. And just as you thought I justified it enough, it's a gank as well. He will summon young Arakai to help him in the battle, and on top of his aggression, this can make the fight much harder and much more.
There's also something I learned when he like pumps out the poison, you can light it, I think. Was it this one or was it someone else? I don't fully remember, but I think it was probably this one. You can light him up. That is like a suicide attack, but it works really well on him.
Honestly, I don't have very much more to say. Quite frankly, I think I've already justified this boss's placement just outside the top 10 enough. It attacks relentlessly, it's a gank, it poisons you, you need to be a very high level to stand any sort of chance against it. And at the end of the road, you barely get any sort of reward, and the game gives you a little blip of experience. Thanks, Project Red. Just entering the top 10, we have the Botchling. Now,
Botchling, now we're getting in the like danger zone. Botchling, I would definitely rank in the top 10. Could I rank it that bottom towards the top 10? I'd probably rank it higher than Emerald. A lot of people might like hate me for that, but I would rank it higher. If you're like on your first playthrough and you're fighting it, you have absolutely no idea how to fight it. And you do genuinely choose that like option to fight it. It is hard. It is like really, really hard. Especially with enemy upscaling. I'm talking about like personal experience. Enemy upscaling, Death March difficulty, and I think it was on the second playthrough. It became so hard to beat it that I had to like actually reduce the enemy upscaling, and on top of that I had to come back another time to just like get my level a bit up because I wasn't confident about beating it.
Now, my question is, are you
And in that same playthrough, I managed to beat Emerald or Death March enemy upscaling on the first try. That tells you a bit about the Botchling. Its attack was too erratic.
surprised this guy's in the top 10? I seriously feel like this boss depends almost entirely on user experience, and I feel like 50% of people will agree with this boss's placement, and 50% will completely scold me for it.
I'm not gonna scold you. I can tell you this guy has tortured my senses.
Considering how early game this boss is, it is absolutely brutal. It's fast, it scratches her.
It is brutal. That's the right word. Yeah, it's brutal.
A surprising amount. It's bulky. The Baron is sat over there screaming like a baby while we're trying to fight his baby. He goes pretty much invulnerable for a certain amount of time to summon raids to come and gank you, and the game does not tell you at all how to counter this. Throughout the time that you're getting ganked by raids, you're probably not using Yrden since you have no idea what that really does, and that it turns raids into manifestation form in order to actually kill them. So you just sat there aimlessly swinging at them without dealing very much damage, and amongst all of this, the Botchling is healing his ginormous health bar at a concerning rate. There is a way to counter this by casting Axii on it. This is the only sign that actually does anything major to it, and it will retract the spikes for a while to stop it from healing and allow you to hit it without taking any damage.
It's sort of like an Al Ghul, I would say. Like, that's the feeling it gave me.
Sounds like it sort of trivializes the fight, but it introduces the aspect of sign managing. Because it hurts you a lot, you probably want Quen active as much as possible, so you have to make sure you have it active, while also keeping Axie ready before it heals too much. I don't know, my justification may seem weird, but based upon my experience and a couple of my friends, the Botchling is absolutely a brutal boss, and even if you disagree with him being top 10, I think he's unanimously one of the harder ones.
Yes, he is one of the harder ones. A lot of people who are going to say it's not one of the harder bosses, it's easy to beat. You don't really have fought him like on Death March or enemy upscaling. Like, it genuinely, when you combine those two, it becomes so hard to beat. It becomes very hard to beat because he summons the Wraiths. And if you defeat the Wraiths, it will keep summoning the Wraiths. And you can't use Eredin on them because it will heal during that time. You need to save Axie just for this thing. Like, this is genuinely a fight where you have to manage everything on Death March and enemy upscaling. Like, it's that hard.
He's definitely the first boss that got me stuck on my first playthrough, and if I remember correctly, he had me stuck for around 2 hours, all because I had absolutely no idea that Yrden helped with the Raves, and that Axie could be used to retract his spot.
No, I knew the Yrden could be helped with the raids, but I knew, like, Axie is something I need to save, and I discovered it, like, by pure accident. It was very exhausting. This fight was exhausting rather than anything for me.
Number 9, Shelmar. In the Gladiator
I hate these. I hate these things.
Arena in Tucson, Geralt and Baron Palmerin Delonful battle this monster. Considering the size of the creature, it can move around the arena, circumventing Geralt and Palmerin's sword swings at blazing speeds that will also hurt you if it rolls inside you. Once it stops rolling, it will unleash a frenzy.
There is a cheat code on how to fight it. You know the sign wheel? When you open the sign wheel, it's something you can use against Emerleth or anything that teleports. When you use the sign wheel, the time slows down, right? This quite literally gives you like this cheat code in the game to see everything perfectly or see how it's going to change its attack because you're seeing it in slow motion. I mean, it's up to you. You can use it. It's a bit exhausting to use, but it will genuinely help you to see an enemy's attack pattern in a slow motion kind of way.
Of attacks that throws up the ground from underneath you that stuns you for a long time and hits really hard. He unleashes up to 5 of these at once, typically 3, and this is one of the few opportunities to get up to the Shelmar yourself and hopes to close the distance. He has
what are you
one
doing?
Insane attack where he rolls up into a ball and starts rapidly spinning in the ground. I don't care what difficulty you are on, this attack will one-shot you if you're close to it, and you can bet that it will kill Palmerin. And even once you close the distance, good luck getting any substantial damage done. This is the monster of Tufo. You cannot deal any substantial damage to it on it.
I mean, that guy said honor of wine and country.
Good luck getting any substantial damage done.
Honor, wine and country. Like, this was blood and wine. Oh my god. It was all about wine rather than blood.
This is the monster of Tufo. You cannot deal any substantial damage to it on its squishy front side and will absorb any damage you send to its back. What you have to do is wait for him to do the rolling charge and try to bait him into hitting the wall. Successfully doing this will cause him to flail on the ground for a while and you can just wail on him.
I mean, look at the kind of nerd I am. Because of the armor he's wearing, I know that he has started the game from blood and wine specifically. That's like the first armor.
However, this is easy.
Like, look at that. The armor is telling you he has started the game from that.
Because this thing seems to detect when it's getting close to a wall and will just turn away
He has started the game from the Blood and Wine DLC. That's the armor telling you the story.
instantly and go immediately in your direction. Figuring out this gimmick while also withstanding the time between your punishment windows will take a long time and absolutely makes for one of the harder bosses in the game. Number 8, Ofieri.
I'll tell you, like I have said like many times, I've encountered bugs, right? When I fought the Ofieri mage, I encountered a bug, genuinely a bug, okay? I defeated all of them, and every time I tried to get close to the mage, it teleported away, right? A lot of people are going to say it does that from time to time. It did for me on every time. I got within like 2 meters of him, he teleported. He just disappeared, and I was like, what's going on? Why am I not getting a hit on him? Then I like went online to check on, and there was a guy who had a very similar problem. And he said, like, every time I try to get close to him, he just teleports away. Like, I'm not even getting an opportunity to hit him. And that's when I realized there was a genuine problem with that. Because when I reloaded a previous save and did it again, I could, like, hit him. There was a genuine problem I had. And I found him at that point, like, really difficult at the first beginning. I thought this was genuinely a more powerful boss than anything. But to each to his own. I found him difficult. But his attack pattern is pretty similar to the Hermit from, Blood and Wine.
Mage. Hooray, another bizarre boss to put in the top 10. I just love justifying these ones. I think I can get through explaining this one fairly quickly though, and I also feel the justification will be agreed with.
I think also the gang you're fighting there is also a problem because you have to be careful about that guy, especially if you're playing on the Death March. You have to be really careful about that guy. He's gonna one-shot or two-shot you on Death March pretty easily. So you have to like get rid of these guys quickly to deal with that guy.
The Offieri Mage is the boss you fight right after another boss to come later on this list, and starts off as a gank with a bunch of standard Offieri warriors, some wielding shields, others swords, and others spears, with the Offieri Mage in the background throwing magic attacks at you. If you have a brain, you'll realize the first thing you would want to do to this fight is eliminate the ads. Once you've eliminated the ads, you're now in a skirmish with an enemy that can absolutely massacre you with many different attacks. Probably the best example of this is his Whirlwind attack. I don't have any knowledge of Deathmatch, but yeah, you'll...
I can tell you from Deathmatch experience, this is so hard to beat on Deathmatch. Like, it's properly very hard to beat on Deathmatch, and I am never fighting him again on Deathmatch. It's a torture. It's like torturing yourself.
Absolutely destroyed by this attack, and it seems to be completely random in terms of where it goes, so dying to it feels pretty dirty. Along with this, you have the time to maybe get 1 or 2 hits in if you're lucky before he teleports, so this makes the fight...
Like, you see, like, you get close to him and hit him. I did not get this opportunity on my first playthrough. Like, I was not able to get that close to him anytime. Like, every time I got, like, within a distance to him, like get towards the edge of the screen, like right over here, okay? I get like right over here near the map where the mini map is. I get to that area and he's on this side of the area. He teleported away. Like every time. That was genuinely some kind of bug, I think.
Extremely arduous and irritating. This fight is only really difficult because of the calamitous damage he does with his spells, and they seem very sporadic and seem very haphazard in where they want to travel. It turns the fight into a very long slog where you barely deal any damage and get one shot by a lot of the attacks, and from what I've noticed when doing research, I am definitely not the only person that feels this way.
No. I probably would put Emerlith below the Offieri Mage, but that's my opinion. He has his open opinion. Emerlith was easier for me to fight, even on my first playthrough, because I was able to see his attack pattern very quickly. Emerlith has like 5 swings, okay? But he's gonna stop at randomly any swing. It can be the first 2 swings or 3 or then 4, and then he's gonna attack you with the last exhausted swing, but 5 or 6 is the limit. He's not gonna attack you beyond that. And as long as you're like sidestepping, dodging slightly, you are gonna be able to deal with him. He's not that hard to beat. And like I told you, there is like a cheat code with this. You can use the sine wheel to, in a sense, predict his attack pattern.
The sisters said you would come. They saw you arrive in the water's surface. They did not see the girl. But she is with you, is she not?
Doesn't matter. You'll never get her.
You fought bravely in the ruined keep, to the bitter end.
I trust this time will be no different.
This boss exemplifies perfectly what it means when I say boss difficulty can depend almost entirely on the player. This is going to sound like bragging, but I personally have never had all that much trouble with Imlerith at all. Maybe it's all...
Yeah, me too. I never had that much trouble with it.
my experience in Dark Souls, but I find it's fairly straightforward to just dodge his very slow attacks, but god damn, I've lost count of how many times I've said this in the video, but he hits so hard it makes me cry.
Yes. If he hits you like once or twice on Deathmatch, you will die. By the 3rd strike, you will be dead.
This is a fight where the game really wants you to be swift, rolling around and dodging his attacks as well as possible until you find a window to attack.
So I'll tell you, 2 fast attacks on him will get the job done. Okay? If you go anywhere beyond that, you will get hit. It's just that simple.
In phase 1, he wields a giant shield and a mace. He'll turtle behind his shield if you're at a distance from him, so good luck being a pussy. Getting close to him obviously means you'll be at the mercy of his perilous mace swings and shield.
You shouldn't get close to him. If you get close to him, like from the front straight up, you're just asking for it, especially in the first phase of the fight. When he like drops the shield, I'll tell you, for me, it becomes a bit easier, which is a lot of people are going to say, no, that's the harder part. No, actually, that is the easier part because he fully devotes himself to attack. So, you know when he's going to stop attacking.
Bashes, but thankfully many of these combos can be punished maybe for 1 or 2 hits if you manage to get behind him, but you can follow up on these punishments so quickly that if you go for additional hits, he will absolutely give you no time to react and dodge, and just because they're quick follow-ups, it doesn't mean they hit less hard than his other attacks. It just means you've got to take it easy in terms of how many hits you go for. A lot of his first phase is rinse and repeat. Try your best to strafe behind him and get a couple of hits in as his combos are ending, then back up to not get hit by the follow-up. Obviously, you can't just hit him from the front because of how he uses his shield, so you've got to get behind him if you want to get any damage in. Once he gets rid of the shield though, oh boy, Imlerith goes all Karanthir on you and starts teleporting all over the place, unleashing frenzies of mace swings as he does so, only stopping if he does a slam down attack that...
See, it's counted, right? That was close to 6. He doesn't go beyond 6. At least he has not gone beyond 6 for me on any playthrough. So, If you're being careful, if you're really being careful, and you have that ability which allows you to dodge without taking any damage, it becomes such an easy fight.
Causes him to get stuck in the ground for a while. Although I never say I've never really had much trouble with Imlerith, I can't help but say that this phase can be chaos. You have no idea where he's going to teleport to, how many swings he'll do before.
He most of the time teleports behind you. Most of the time. And near you. Most of the time he's behind you.
Or after he teleports, and if you get hit by any more than one of these, you're probably a dead man. Sometimes he'll teleport after he's swung his May 5 times, sometimes he'll teleport in the complete opposite direction, do a spin attack, then teleport again instantly, and all of this is so difficult to keep up with, it can lead to almost instant death with how hard he hits. The only time you can punish him in this phase is when his mace gets stuck in the ground, as I mentioned earlier, and even then, your windows to hit him are so minimal, you're lucky to get 2 or 3 hits in before he starts doing his next round of teleports. If you need to back away and heal because he's bludgeoned you with his mace, this is made almost impossible due to the fact there's no handicap on where he can teleport. So just as you think you're safe, he's right back on your ass. All of this combined makes it one of the...
It's like one of the fast-paced fights, I would say. It's one of the fast-paced fights, especially when he like throws his shield away. Because he devotes himself to attacking, so you just have to dodge and attack him like once or twice. So it's pretty predictable, actually.
The most punishing and demanding bosses in the game, but one of the best at that.
I would agree he's the most punishing, yeah. If you're playing on higher difficulty, he is gonna absolutely throttle you.
Number 6, Wicked Witch. One of the most annoyingly difficult bosses in the game. The Wicked Witch is the first boss you encounter in the Land of a Thousand Fables. Right off the bat, I just want to say how much
I hate her. Especially that bubble that is around her. First you have to break that, and then you have to deal with it. Till then you can do nothing to her whatsoever.
I hate this fight for the implementation of an enemy I mentioned earlier, Archospores. These things are so irritating and so hard to fight, and the Wicked Witch spawns them so frequently after she starts flying in the air. You'll notice as soon as you start the fight...
And you can't even ignore them. In this fight, you're not gonna be able to ignore them. That's the problem with this fight.
That dealing damage to her is made significantly more difficult by the fact that she's flying around all over the place.
Or maybe you can ignore them, but I have not been able to ignore them. It's very hard. They just have caused me problems whenever I ignore them.
Place on a broomstick, protecting herself with a magic bubble. Similarly to the Archgriffins.
You know, when I fought her first time, it took me almost 20 minutes to figure out how to deal with her. Like, that's all. Like, I have no idea how to deal with that bubble around her. I had literally no idea.
And basilisks before her, you can shoot her out of the air occasionally, which will knock her to the floor and allow you to deal some damage to her. Versus the witch, the only time you can do this is when she flies over you to spew toxic fluids at you, because this is the only time she abolishes her bubble that otherwise makes her completely invulnerable. She does not do this while any Archospores or Primordial Panthers are on the field, so you can't just ignore them. Once you've knocked...
There is one thing I'll tell you. The moment she falls down on the field, okay, you can use Northern Wind. I know I've said Northern Wind so many times in this video, but it's so helpful that it basically slows down time for a small time. And when she falls down to the ground, if you use Northern Wind, your attack window for her is extended from this to this. Like, it makes one hell of a difference when you're trying to... It ends the fight quickly, that's what I would say.
Knock you down onto the ground, her Baroom will try and attack you as well as the witch herself, so you still got stuff to worry about even after knocking her down. You actually have a decent amount of time to deal damage to the witch, and she staggers fairly easily, so despite all that, you can absolutely get some decent damage done before she unleashes a big AoE with her pop that staggers Geralt for 6 seconds and allows her to teleport away, get back on her broom, and protect herself again. And yeah, I believe this bubble is completely invulnerable, and I don't think any signs or bombs can penetrate it.
Yeah, I can tell you, I tried for 20 minutes. Nothing works on that bubble.
The boss is absolutely a difficult challenge when considering the ad she spawns, how much health she has, how limited your attack windows are amongst all of this, and how much damage she and her companions can deal. Archospores are some of the most irritating enemies in the game to fight, and the Primordial Panthers are so quick and tough to hit sometimes they can definitely make for a tedious and difficult fight. Definitely a creative boss fight though, despite the Archospores, and I'm always it can definitely make for a tedious and difficult fight. Definitely a creative boss fight though, despite the Archospores, and I'm always excited for it when entering the Land of a Thousand Fables. Number 5, Caretaker. One of the most...
This was one of the most horrifying bosses. I mean, look at this guy, right? I was like, oh my god, these guys have just crossed another level of creepy. This guy, I had to fight this guy. I was genuinely terrified.
Creative and one of my favorite boss fights in the game, the Caretaker is unanimously one of the most difficult boss fights in The Witcher 3 for quite a few reasons. At first, he's a fairly standard boss, swinging at Geralt with his broken shovel in order to deal damage that has to be dodged and punished by either getting behind him or waiting for the end of his combos. Once his health goes down...
Did anyone see that? Wait, he just missed. He just missed.
Deal damage that has to be dodged and punished by either getting behind him or waiting...
Wait, that's right. That's right. He's about to use right. Watch the attack. He missed.
To the end of his combos.
You know, that moment when this happens, you feel so angry at yourself. Oh my god, I did such a cool thing. And it didn't do anything.
Once his health goes down a little, he'll introduce attacks where his shovel glows blue before some of them, and he'll unleash one of many different crushing AoE attacks. I hate comparing these to Dark Souls bosses, but he really just feels just like one. All of these
He felt exactly like a Dark Souls boss.
different AoE attacks have different windups and obvious tells that require you to really look at what these are, so you can establish exactly what attack is coming and what the method and direction of dodging is needed. Where this fight gets brutal is when he reaches 50% HP. He throws out smoke all around him and blue specters will start coming out of the ground. The Caretaker will head towards these specters now instead of you, because every time he hits or kills one of them,
his health regenerates.
he will heal a big chunk of his HP. This doesn't apply to just these specters though. Anytime he hits you, he will also heal the same amount of health, and he still uses the big AoE attacks against you. These AoE attacks can hit multiple specters at once.
I'll tell you like how to beat him at this point. And a lot of people are gonna make a meme out of this. Northern Wind.
So will regenerate twice or even 3 times as much HP than what he would just hitting you or one of the specters. This fight really tests your damage per second to see if you can out-damage how much he heals. A lot of people struggle with this, myself included, especially in high difficulties as his HP is inflated and your damage is not.
I invite you to play it on, Death March with enemy upscaling. Like, this is the fight I would really want you to try, especially when he starts like this healing thing.
The best way to deal with the fight is to take out the specters yourself. They die in 1 or 2 hits, even on Death March, and so many of them spawn at a time that if you don't kill them, the Caretaker is probably just going to regenerate his entire health bar, which is something you definitely do not want. These specters spawn in waves, so as soon as you've taken out an entire wave of them, none will spawn for around 10 seconds, giving you a small window to deal as much damage as possible to the Caretaker. There's one attack in particular where he swings his shovel vertically and gets his shovel stuck in the ground for a few seconds, which is another really good window to get some damage dealt to him. You also have to make sure you don't get careless during this fight. There's been many occasions where I've got him down to just a few hits from death, so I start tunneling him, which is bad because he'll just start swinging at specters and healing more than I can damage him. Other than that, there's not much else to say. Almost anybody that has played this game on Death March will probably agree with me when I say the Caretaker is one of the most difficult bosses in The Witcher 3, and arguably one of the best, offering some.
It is one of the best. It's one of the most unique one because you have to fight him and plan while fighting him.
Awesome creativity and unique mechanics, especially in comparison to the majority of the bosses in the game. Number 4, Iris's greatest fear. This boss is going to be difficult to talk about because I'm still yet to talk about the.
Oh, this is like the gang fight, I think. Yeah, I accidentally, when I attacked him, there are these old Guild 1 Avricks. Basically, I attacked one and then I accidentally attacked the second or third, and they just, they gangbanged me. It was very bad. So bad.
Boss they're based on, and I don't want
you just have to fight one at one time.
When we reach him. This boss does something with an even more difficult one that makes it slightly easier, but still really difficult.
On Death March, they will kill you in one shot.
It multiplies it by 7 and removes 90% of its health. Saying this, it is still one of the bulkiest bosses in the game that hits just as hard as anybody else after it. The gimmick to this battle is that although he's been multiplied by 7, only 1 or 2 of them are active at any one time.
But you can activate all 7 of them at once if you hit all 7, so don't do that.
If you're familiar with the Deacons of the Deep from Dark Souls 3, then you'll understand what the goal is here. A dark spirit possesses 1 or 2 of them at a time, making the ones possessed the only ones active and attacking you. You have to pay close attention to this, because if you attack one that isn't active, he will become active and make the fight a gank, which is something you absolutely do not want in a fight as difficult as this. On Death March, every single one of these enemies will one-shot you regardless of your armor, and I strongly remember my friend playing through this DLC for the first time in full cat armor and getting completely.
No, cat armor is not good for taking attacks. It's the worst. If you're using cat armor, you're gonna die.
Completely decimated by any one of their attacks unless he had Quen active. The combos they have are extremely long and difficult to read. Some are really short and some are really long, and this can make it extremely difficult to gauge when the combo will end and when you can get in and punish. You cannot really get behind him as the tracking they have is crazy and will most likely punish you unless you get.
I am really intrigued what he puts on, like, number 1. Like, I'm gonna say it is fall damage, but let's move on. I think it's definitely
far away from him, which also doesn't work because the combo is normally ended by the time you wrap behind him completely. Yerden is absolutely one of the best signs to use and is arguably more useful than Quen for this fight. Slowing down their combos and their already somewhat slow movement can sometimes be more valuable than being allowed to tank one single hit. If you've put any upgrades into Yerden, they can sometimes last long enough that you can use it alongside Quen as well for the best chance of succeeding in this fight. The brutality of this fight really
I think I know which number 3 is.
And the possibility of it being the most difficult gank fight in the entire game. Number 3, Dettlaff the Vampire. A lot of people's favorite and highest regarded boss.
Wait, it's number 3? How is it number 3? If he put like the Toad Prince Abo, oh my god. This actually, Dettlaff is not hard to fight. A lot of people will say, yeah, it is hard to fight. I think his fight is more exhausting than anything because his fight is so long. That is one of the reasons he's so hard to fight. But in reality, it's not that hard to fight. It's just his fight is prolonged over many stages. That is what makes his fight, like, it leaves an impact in your head. Okay, this guy's so hard to beat. In reality, his fight is just long. And if you're playing on Deathmatch, you feel like, okay, no, this is probably the hardest fight in the game, but it is not the hardest fight. The hardest fight is one individual, and I have done that on Deathmatch with no enemy upscaling. It was still hard. But this on Deathmatch was easy. It was just exhausting above all. Fighting him was extremely exhausting on Deathmatch.
Boss fight is absolutely one of the best in the game, offering the most phases of any battle throughout. You actually fight with Dettlaff early in the DLC under the well-recognized name, the Beast of Beauclair. This is a good introduction to the first phase's relentlessness, throwing brutal flurries of swings at you that deal a lot of damage and make dealing damage to him very difficult. But you aren't supposed to win this fight, and your good friend Regis comes along to assist you in the battle, causing Dettlaff to flee until you meet him again near the end of the DLC, where stuff gets a little bit more real. Dettlaff returns this time with even more lust for blood. You've already battled this first phase, but considering you weren't even supposed to survive the Beast of Beauclair encounter, you're likely still pretty inexperienced with this one. He dashes around the arena, venting some extremely fast claw swipes at you that feel almost impossible to parry. Where he teleports is random. He can just teleport in front of you, just behind you, away from you, to your side, pretty much anywhere, which means you have to make sure your reflexes are fast enough to react to what.
You just need to have fast reflexes when fighting him. And he's not lying. Actually, if you also use that, the thing that allows you to dodge, like some reflexes ability. I don't remember the name, dodge reflexes or something. And that makes this fight like pretty easy as well, because you're not going to receive any damage when you dodge him. Even if you dodge him pretty late.
Behind him and get a hit in, he's just going to dash forward and turn around, which means you cannot get any more than one hit in reliably. Although it does give you some assurance on what he's going to do next, and you can't get any hits in from the front because he's a deflect god and will just swipe right back at you. This phase doesn't last all that long and shouldn't take you too long to get used to, but when you've whittled down his health bar a little bit, he goes all Genichiro on you and he transforms into a demon, gaining the power of flight and conjuration. He will teleport close to you before swiping down at you Demon Prince style and start summoning bats in your direction. These bats have a deceiving audio effect that makes you think you have to dodge at a certain time when it is in fact much later, so you have to adapt to this during the fight or risk getting two-shot by the attack. This one took me a while to get used to, and I know it gave my friends a couple of problems as well. The attack you really want to punish in this phase is the one where he slams vertically onto you. He just lets you hit him for a while before unleashing another AoE attack and jumping back up again. Most attacks in this phase are well telegraphed and can arguably be considered easy to dodge, but certainly on Deathmatch, the amount of damage he deals with the attacks is almost guaranteed to one or two-shot you. This phase also doesn't last all that long, and just as you think it's over, he bites you, ingesting some of the toxic in Geralt's blood and conjures a disgusting arena made of arteries and capillaries, hatching himself from a bulb in an attempt to rejuvenate himself. The goal
Yeah, but he becomes even easier to fight during this time.
of this phase is to destroy the 4 sacks at the sides of the arena as they deplete Dettlaff's health bar, all while trying to avoid his last-ditch efforts to try and kill Geralt. I may have made this boss sound easy, but in amongst all of these phases, he deals ridiculous amounts of damage with attacks that have a very wide range of wind-ups, lengths, and methods of dodging. Getting used to all of them will definitely cause almost all players quite a few deaths. The fight goes from a fast-paced deflection game to a slower-paced patience game, ensuring that you nail and get used to.
I find this phase much easier because I know I have to focus on those things and they're not going to attack back. I just, you know what I do? I hit that thing like twice or thrice and then I move on to the next sack. Okay? Because if you try to stay on one and try to destroy it, he will also destroy you because you're just standing in one place and you can't do that. You don't have to stand in one place. Don't lock onto one thing. Just attack it like 2-4 times and run away to the next one. Like that's how you do. You move on in a scare and destroy these sacks. That's how you do this fight.
The dodge timings of his attacks, and although individual phases may not last all that long, a fight with essentially 4 phases total can be a very tough stamina game. Certainly one of the best and most memorable bosses throughout The Witcher 3 is a fantastic and satisfying way to finish one of the best DLCs I have ever played.
It's the best way to finish the whole trilogy, I would say. Trilogy of DLCs. Like, it's one of the best way to finish it because it was the most satisfying boss that he wanted to fight. Like, this is what he expected from Eridan. He didn't get it
in a video game. Number 2, Toad Prince.
Now, this is where I disagree with him. Okay, I would put the Toad Prince third and Dettlaff second. I know who the first is, and I agree with that. I think probably. So it should end up as a disappointment. Why I would put the Toad Prince third? Do you know why? I killed him on Deathmatch by only dying once. I killed him on Deathmatch, and there is a very simple thing you need to use when you fight him. The Golden Oriole. Okay, you use that superior one. This fight becomes like 100 times easier. And I did it on Deathmatch. That is my point. Like, his poison becomes meaningless. And you can just easily win the fight. So I don't know why he put it second. Dettlaff I would definitely put second. This guy third. This was hard. He was a tank. Fighting him, defeating him, like depleting his entire health was absolutely the hardest thing I had done for the entire game. But I managed to beat him on just my second try. And I realized like I just have to drink the superior golden Oreo and that's it. It became so easier. With that one potion, it became so much easier. Like, I don't know why he put him second. But, you know, to each to his own. Maybe he found it much harder. The health might have been the hard part for him. And he does hit hard. There's also that. Like, he just blows you away.
On the other end of the spectrum, we have one of the most abysmal and unfair bosses throughout the entire game. This boss is just awful, and I don't know how to explain how awful it actually is. I know I'm not the only person that feels this way, but in my opinion, this boss feels uncharacteristically difficult compared to almost every single other boss in the game, except for one, obviously. This boss feels like it's taken every single enemy in the game, taken their health, and put all of it into its own health pool.
Its health is the problem.
Oxenfurt will one-shot you through a quench shield with a few attacks that have some of the most ungenerous tells and hitboxes, and I cannot promulgate this to you any more than I already have. It's the most egregious example of Project Red utilizing the bullet sponge mechanic while simultaneously giving a boss access to some of the most disgusting and hardest hitting.
Like, this is what they could have done with Eridan, right? They could have tanked his health tremendously to make it 10 times harder or 20 times difficult or exhausting. The fight with him didn't feel exhausting. With Toad Prince, Detlef, it felt really exhausting. Like, because this was a very long fight and their health was so hard to deplete. That is my point. His health is the hardest to deplete. That I agree with.
Attacks in the entire game. And if you thought getting one shot was awful enough, the entire arena can be absolutely slathered in poison that will...
That poison, I told you, is an easy way to deal with. You just heal for the entire game. You heal for the entire fight. When you fight him, if you move away from him, you heal. Like, that is the power of the superior golden Oreo. Like, when you take it, this fight actually becomes easier because you're just gonna keep regenerating your health.
Almost immediately dissipate your Quen and deal damage over time, once again adding to the plethora of terrible attacks this frog has. The DOT is also bad because even if you can tank a hit from this guy, he'll probably deal upwards of 95% of your health bar, so even having a tiny bit of your health missing will mean you'll die on the next hit. You obviously only have a limited amount of healing for this battle, and with a health bar as monstrous as this one, it means you have to get hit as little as humanly possible. You can argue that Igni makes this fight a lot easier with the poisonous gas being flammable and with the explosions dealing quite a generous chunk of damage to the frog, but when you...
The poison is the thing that makes it so good. I paused it at the worst moment, but poison is the thing that makes it good because that poison heals you. I don't think he noticed it at that point, but or maybe he did, he just didn't use it, but that one detail, like that one thing makes this fight so easier.
You're gonna have the opportunity to cast Igni when the only chance you have of surviving this stamina game is to keep Quen active as much as possible. I don't really know what else to say, honestly. This is probably my least favorite boss in the game due to how massive its health bar is and how boring the fight can be. It's not even like it's hard but fun, which a lot of the bosses in this game are. It's long, tedious, demoralizing, irritating, and probably embedded in a lot of people's memory as being a boss that kicked their sorry ass like no other boss in the game. But that is, of course, still less than the final boss on this list. But before we get on to the final boss, I'd just like to say that I stream regularly over at my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/mynamescosmic.
Is the final boss Olgid? It has to be Olgid. Because I can tell you that was the hardest person I fought.
There. And the title of the hard...
Yeah, great video. Great video. I'm basically liking every video of his. That is how good this is. I'll tell you why he's the hardest to beat, right? He has put him on the top, so obviously he's gonna explain. But for me, I fought him on Death March and enemy upscaling. I got one shot every time. I told you like the 3 pigs beat me over 10 times, right? This guy, I had to fight for 2 days. Not in like 2 days in real life, but the first day I fought him, I died like 16 to 20 times, I think. The second day, almost 12 times. And then I went and read a walkthrough and stuff. And even then, I still died 4 more times. That's when I realized, am I under-leveled or something? And that's when I got into a forum, talked to somebody who was like, turn enemy upscaling off, like try it on a lower difficulty. I just didn't want to. So I took every decoction and stuff. Like, genuinely, I studied what I had. Like, this thing made me study what I have in my inventory so that I could deal with him on a hard difficulty. Like, his attack pattern was so erratic. He didn't even give you time to breathe It was that bad. He was one of the worst bosses in this game that I ever fought. It's not even like the last boss of this. Like the oh god. Like I hope I could say Detlef was harder to fight than him. No, he was not. When you fight him, depending on what level you're on, even if you're as the same level as him, you're finished. Like enemy upscaling just ruins it for you. It's not something. It's humiliating to fight him. Like this game genuinely punishes you when you're fighting him. It feels like proper Dark Souls thing at that point.
Hardest and my favorite boss in The Witcher 3 Wild.
He just like disappears and like teleports in this black shadows thing. It was one of the worst things he did to me. Like he didn't, like I got his health like 1/3 down. I consider like that a big achievement. And by the time I got it like 2/3 down, I was like, okay, I've done something. And that is when he absolutely destroyed me yet again.
Wild Hunt goes to the legend himself.
He's the guy who genuinely made me question, like I have to decrease the difficulty completely. Like genuinely. And I didn't want to do it.
Olgierd von Everec. Oh man, what to talk about first. This boss is the opposite of the Toad Prince in the fact that he's brutally difficult for all the right reasons. He's a very good balance of insane difficulty while still being a very fun battle. Olgierd uses demonic powers given to him by the Man of Glass and utilization of his enchanted Ophiri scimitar to apparate short distances and unleash devastating power attacks at Geralt that will almost definitely one or two shot you. He has many long and unpredictable combos that end arbitrarily. Sometimes he'll swing twice, sometimes he'll swing 20 times, and it's really difficult sometimes to gauge and predict when his combo ends for you to go and deal some damage to him. Doesn't matter what level you are either. His attacks deal a brutal amount of damage despite the fact they are quick flurries, feel almost impossible to deflect to deal any damage to him, and you get barely any breathing room to try and reposition yourself. The footage really doesn't do this fight justice. I'm actually pretty good at this fight because of how much I fought him after him kicking my ass for hours upon hours upon hours. The only real windows you have to attack Olgierd are the ones you get by staggering him by deflecting his glowy red attacks or attacking him after he throws sand at you. If you get behind
that
him
is the
for a bit,
attack.
much like
That is the
Detlef,
difficult
you end up
attack.
getting more than one hit in. Attacking him directly just means all of your swings get deflected and deal no damage to him, so there's also no point in doing this. The fight unkindly requests that you risk everything to nail deflect timing, something that I would say not a lot of players commonly do in The Witcher 3 is a high-risk, high-reward method for the fight. He does stagger for a while and let you get quite a fair amount of hits in if you do manage to nail the deflection, but regardless of your level, you'll deal such little damage to him. The fight is
Oh my god,
very
look
long
at this,
regardless.
look
I
at
prefer
this.
the method of getting behind him and getting hits in as it removes some of the unpredictability from the fight and also
It's
means
so
I'm not really
erratic.
risking my
It's
entire health bar
chaotic.
for one deflection. Not to mention that Olgierd has access to many of the red glowy attacks that all have different tells, similarly to the Caretaker, and all of them will need different deflection timings, and this makes it far more difficult. Yrden is useful for this as always, slowing down his attack.
You know what is the best thing about this fight? I'm gonna take a positive. At the very least, he doesn't heal. If he did heal, you would kill yourself.
To make the deflections easier, but it's still so much easier said than done. Adapting to Olgierd's merciless combos can be difficult, and although a lot of the standard swings can just be blocked without much effort, he can follow up very quickly with some perilous swings that are very dangerous if you're not prepared.
It also feels like sometimes he's blocking from all sides, which he doesn't, but even like on this side of the shoulder, he's able to block. That's how hard this
All
becomes.
in all, this fantastic skirmish between two Master Swordsmen is an exhilarating battle that offers a massive amount of difficulty for people interested in the challenge. It's accompanied by some of the best music in the game, has an amazing atmospheric battle arena, and is truly one of the best battles the game has to offer. My only complaint about it is that he has so much health it can make attempts at fighting him quite exhausting. Just like in the Toad Prince, you have a very limited amount of healing, and when versing a boss with such an enormous health bar that
And you know what is the best thing? You're not fighting him with a silver sword. You're actually fighting him with a steel weapon, and he still destroys you.
does the amount of damage Olgierd does, one hit early in the fight can exhaust almost a third of your healing depending on what you have. But that certainly does not stop it from being one of the best and the hardest boss in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Well, everybody, it's certainly been a long one. Thank you for watching up until this point, even if you just skipped to the end bosses. Now, please do be aware that there is a possibility I may have missed a boss or two. Please.
I didn't skip because it was worth it. Very good video. I enjoyed it. Cosmic Bone, I'm subscribing. It was a good video. Like, I genuinely enjoyed it. This was a really, really good video. Oh my god. I have recorded this video, I think, for over 2 hours. Oh my god. And I enjoyed it. I genuinely enjoyed reacting to something that I know so much about. I hope whoever watches this doesn't get tormented by what I have done.
Please excuse me if I have, as this game is such a massive range of quests, side quests, Witcher contracts, and optional encounters. It's pretty impossible for me to ensure that I've got them all. Ranking the difficulty of 90 bosses is also extremely difficult, so please forgive me if some of the rankings seemed absurd in your opinion. But at the end of the day, please do remember this video is just my opinion and is in no way objective. If you enjoyed this video, I've also ranked the difficulty of the bosses in other games such as Dark Souls, Bloodborne, God of War, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, and the Prince of Persia trilogy, and these can all be found on my channel. Thanks again for watching, everybody. My social media is in the description if anybody is interested. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.
Yeah, it was one of the best videos I watched. It was worth it. So I think I'm gonna end this one right here. I'll see you guys next time. Till then, take care of yourself. Remember to like and subscribe. So I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Oh god, I have no idea why I made it such a big video, but I genuinely enjoyed it, so I don't really care.